Dragon Clan. Mingfei Returns from Warhammer 40,000. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101. Capturing Uzajiri. The girl waved her palm, and her fingertips drew 5 invisible lines of death in the air. The ancient word from the wild was cold and ruthless as metal when they came out of her mouth. No weapons were needed. She herself was the embodiment of the law of death, and her judgment was to give the enemy the will to die. That was an order to announce the death to the 4 bandits. However, the 4-barreled gunner who was rushing in the front was completely unaware. He was overwhelmed by the pleasure of the roaring machine gun, and the Gatling gun that had just shot and killed the doctors and nurses was still rotating and aimed at the girl. The golden eyes behind the hood revealed tyranny and greed. He recalled the pleasure of killing people with an Arkansas while having fun while working in the Middle East. Then, the memory was shattered. The 4-barreled Gatling gun in his hand was shattered. The palm was shattered. The world in front of him was shattered. The whole body of the 4-barreled gun fell apart under the order of death, as if it was divided by an invisible sharp claw. A huge amount of blood plasma burst out, like a dirty bloody flower blooming. The girl's eyes, flowing with golden lava, passed through the withering blood flowers and looked at the remaining 3 bandits. She raised her palm again. Get rich, Thong. Stop her. Dabing's sturdy body trembled uncontrollably. He felt the terrifying power that destroyed the 4 barrels. His palm just touched the magazine belt on his waist. In his memory, the girl in the information had a conspicuous dark red hair, while the girl who raised her hand to kill had silver white hair. That's why Dabbing wasted nearly 3 seconds to confirm whether the other party was the second target to be captured this time. Uzajiri. And needless to say, the moment the other party raised his hand for the first time, Thong had already released the word spirit. Dust-free land. Those who can stand here are all famous hybrid hunters or killers in the dark web. Although they don't know the history of the Dragon Clan and hybrids, and they think that the word spirit is actually their special ability, but no matter what worldview they have in their minds, they are still very sensitive to the perception of deadly danger. Except for the brain-dead Sea Tong, they couldn't save him and didn't want to save him. It was even better for him to die, as they could get an extra $1 or $2 million. Fark also released Tanyan. This high-risk word spirit from the lineage of the King of the Earth and the Mountain took longer to prepare than the Dustless Land, but it was finally ready when Uzajiri raised her hand for the second time. A black wave rose from the ground, forming a wall between the 3 bandits and Eri. And just after the wall was formed, a cold and ruthless low shout exploded in their minds like thunder. Destruction. The solid wall constructed by Tanyan was of Rabjala's paper and collapsed into pieces in an instant. The power did not stop because of this, and it continued to sweep towards the force field constructed by Thong. Another bloody flower bloomed. The Dustless Land could block bullets, flames, and even rocket grenades, but it could not stop Era's deadly will of destruction. The word spirit field constructed by ultra-high-speed airflow could not defend against the law of power. Thong died, and the thong on the hood was completely covered with blood. Shit. For Kirsten turned to retrieve immediately. Although the bonus was very tempting, she didn't want to pay the price of her life for it. At this moment, a monotonous clapper sounded. Dabbing's hood was already wet with sweat. He was holding a pair of black claps in his hands, knocking and rubbing them stiffly to make a rustling sound. Uzajiri's trial was interrupted. After hearing the sound of the clappers, her seemingly delicate body suddenly trembled violently, the golden lava in her eyes was fading, and 2 lines of blood-red tears flowed down. She seemed to fall into some kind of nightmare-like illusion, and in an instant she turned from an invincible embodiment of the will to kill into a puppet that had lost its vitality. Come back, Versailles. Control her. Dabbing cursed, and the whole person was almost exhausted. The terrifying sharp pressure made him breathless, and for a while he almost couldn't find the right tune. After confirming that the scary girl could no longer use her terrifying power, Fark dared to turn back. She used the power of Tanyan to soften the ground around Eri's feet and the tatami, turning it into several sticky balls that wrapped Eri's body tightly. Dabing dared to stop playing the clapper and breathed a sigh of relief. He looked at the 2 pools of scarlet blood on the ground not far away and shuddered again. 2 mercenaries who were among the best in the dark side of the world were killed by the girl with just a wave of her hand. It looked as easy as drinking water. Damn it, didn't she say she was in the weak stage? Why is she still so powerful? Dabing cursed in a low voice. It's because she is in the weak stage, otherwise you would have been killed the first time she raised her hand. The man's reply came from his headset. Da Bing's tone became nervous. Boss. Hurry up, open the box, and use the things inside to capture her and take her away. Jieshu urged. Understood. Da Bing quickly put down the clapper and opened the long aluminum box beside him. The box contained an ancient and heavy bronze chain. The cold metal surface was engraved with various complex and mysterious symbols, and a faint green luster flowed along the surface of the chain. The dragon binding rope is an alchemical creation inherited from an ancient Chinese mixed blood family. I spent a lot of effort to grab it. Although there are alchemical restrictions on it to prevent outsiders from using it, it can't prevent your word spirit. Use it to capture the girl. Jieshu's faint words came from the other side of the headset. Understood. Da Bing nodded solemnly, understanding Jieshu's meaning. He gently stroked the bronze chain and recited the melodious dragon text. Word spirit. The soldier of eternal harmony. The medium risk word spirit, no. 57 inches. The word spirit periodic table can enhance its own control over alchemical artifacts. If there is an alchemical living spirit, its affinity will be enhanced, and it can even ignore the restrictions of the alchemical matrix to a certain extent. The superior word spirit of this word spirit is sword control located at No. 82. The light of the bronze chain suddenly lit up, and a layer of ethereal blue runes faded. The living spirit in this ancient alchemical weapon, which was originally quite resistant, succumbed to the altar of the word spirit of Da Bing. Without human intervention, the dragon binding rope seemed to have life, like a blue-green giant python crawling towards Uzujiera, who was bound by Tanyan. With a bang, without having to make a fortune to release Tanyan, the bronze chain crushed the wrapped stones and bound Uzujiera's delicate body closely. The dragon binding rope emitted a bright red light, and runes appeared one by one, as if they came alive and merged into the girl's body. The girl stopped trembling, as if the endless nightmare had ended, and lowered her head and fell into a deep sleep. The Tsukayomi of the Snake 8 clan and the Aino Murakamo, the sharpest weapon in the world, have been captured successfully. Jieshu laughed softly. Retreat, go down to the 10th floor, I've prepared a place for you, wait for the Rasormon to close. Understood. Without being reminded, Da Bing did not dare to stay here for long, and hurried over to carry the girl bound by bronze chains on his back. The girl's body was cold, like a cold iron coffin. The only two remaining bandits returned along the complicated road they came from, not daring to stay for long. But the Executive Bureau specialists supporting the 45th floor also rushed to the scene, and seeing that the criminals had kidnapped the head of the Uzuji family, they all rushed over fearlessly to take him back. Without the firepower of the 4 barrels, Farka had to endure the huge load on his body and once again launched the power of Tanyan. The ground turned into a murderous swamp and mud waterfall, and all the attacking Executive Bureau specialists were buried. Asshole, put down the head of the Uzuji family. Miyamoto Shia, who arrived late, was furious when he saw this scene. He roared and rushed over with his sword, but then his feet were trapped by the surging ground and he could not move forward. Damn, I'm almost out of strength. Farkai's voice was obviously weak. She had consumed a lot of energy to release Ganyan many times in a short period of time. Hold on, the elevator is in front, let's go down quickly. Think about the rewards. As long as you survive, you can get at least 30 to 40 million US dollars. Da Bing encouraged her hurriedly. Now she was the only one left with the strongest fighting force. If she couldn't hold on, she would be finished. Asshole. Don't run. Come back. Miyamoto Shio threw the Archelon sword in his hand with all his strength, but failed to hit the 2 fleeing bandits. Although he was the descendant of the famous swordsman Miyamoto Musashi, Miyamoto Shio was only a scientific researcher after all and was not good at force. Boom. With a loud bang, Farkai lifted up the RPG behind him, a dazzling flash of fire passed, and the last rocket grenade smashed the ordinary elevator door in front. Because of the previous damage, the elevator had already stopped running, and the elevator shaft was their fastest escape route. Da Bing raised his hand and shot the rope gun, and the 5-claw hook firmly grasped the pipe on the shaft wall. Just when he wanted to go down first, he was stopped by Farkai. Wait. I still have the mission target on my back. Da Bing wanted to say something, but soon he closed his mouth. Something is coming up from below, and the sound of cutting metal is clearly audible. It's a pity, the capture mission has been declared a complete failure. Jieshu sighed in the headset, with a burst of resentment in his words. But the 2 bandits turned a deaf ear to it. They stared at the angel who slowly appeared from the elevator shaft through the hood. There was a pair of dazzling golden wings behind him, not a virtual illusion. The pair of wings cut the walls of the elevator shaft on both sides, allowing him to climb up steadily. Bing swallowed hard and took off his hood. This time, he took a full 10 seconds to see the other person's face and recognize who he was. It's target number 1, bloody twins have been killed. He couldn't stop trembling all over. I stopped you. The angel's golden eyes glanced at them coldly, and the sword in his hand burned with a blazing golden flame. Woo, I'm sorry, I fell asleep on the table again last night. But the good news is that it's red. No need to go to work, you can stay at home and concentrate on typing. Chapter 102 Uninvited Guests. Damn it. This guy is not the same as the one in the picture. Far Cry cursed in a low voice. The wanted poster of target number 1, Mingfei, appeared in her mind. He looked like a silly high school student, who wouldn't even make a splash if thrown into a crowd. It's not impossible that he might play dumb, such as tearing open his school uniform to reveal a red S on his chest, or turning into Spider-Man after taking off his school uniform, but she never thought that he would appear in this way. Except for a little bit of similarity in appearance, Far Cry couldn't find any trace of the wanted poster photo on the face of the angel of death in front of him. Cold, powerful, calm, it's frightening. As for age, that doesn't matter at all. So Mingfei. These two thugs want to kidnap the head of the Uzuchi family. Miyamoto Shippuden shouted excitedly as if he had seen a savior. Mingfei glanced at the two indifferently, and finally stopped at the Asian man with a crew cut. In addition to the Otong Mahjong headgear in his hand, he also carried a girl tied up by bronze chains behind him, with her long silver white hair falling down helplessly. Rumble, the ground surged violently like a wave, and Far Cry used all his strength to release Tanyan for the last time, and then decisively ran back. Bin, who heard the movement, showed a happy face. Far Cry really had a backup plan, so they still had a chance to escape. He turned around with Uzuchi on his back and saw a black wall blocking him. Bin was stunned at first, and then reacted with a distorted face and cursed. This bitch. Far Cry sold him directly in exchange for a few more seconds in order to escape safely. Mingfei raised his foot to break free from the ground that entangled him, and stepped forward with the burning sword of the pure moon. Without giving Bin a chance to beg for mercy or kneel down, he gently slashed with the sword, and the other party's head with a terrified look fell to the ground. There was not even any blood spurting out. The golden flames scorched the wound the moment the skull was cut open. Mingfei didn't care much about the other heretic, and didn't chase him to kill him. In his prophetic psychic vision, the heretic's life had been stained with a meaningless grey, and he would die soon. As for how he died and at whose hands, who would care about this? Is the battle over? Finkel's head popped out of the safe passage. Originally walking up the stairs, the angel leader suddenly opened the elevator door and climbed up from the elevator shaft. The pair of materialized light wings behind him moved freely like Dr. Octopus's mechanical tentacles. Of course, he didn't know that Mingfei sensed the enemy's retreat route because of his prophetic psychic power. Mingfei picked up the unconscious girl who was bound by the bronze chain and walked towards Miyamoto Shio, who was not far away. Thank you very much. The Snape 8 clan will do their best to repay your kindness. The head of the Miyamoto family stood up from the ground with difficulty and bowed deeply to Mingfei to express his gratitude. Tanyan's effect has ended, and the ground that was like a swamp has returned to its original state, imprisoning his legs in place. Who is she? Why do these heretics want to take her away? Mingfei gently put the girl down, raised his hand and smashed the ground that was like a shackle under Miyamoto Shio's feet. She is the head of the Uzuchi family among the Snape 8 families, Uzuchi area. These criminals should want to kidnap the head of the Uzuchi family, to threaten our Snape 8 families. Miyamoto Shio bowed again and nodded repeatedly. You are lying. Mingfei stared at Miyamoto Shio, and the other's somewhat erratic eyes could not escape his eyes. I'm very sorry. The head of the Uzuchi family is a secret of the Snape 8 families, I can't disclose it casually. Miyamoto Shio's forehead was covered with cold sweat, and he lowered his head and did not dare to look directly at Mingfei. It's up to you. But Mingfei didn't care too much, she was just a weak mixed-race girl. The only thing that could attract his attention was probably her silver white hair, which always reminded him of those loyal and fanatical combat nuns. Of course, becoming a combat nun is not something that can be done by dyeing one's hair white. One also needs to have complete devotion and faith to the Emperor. He squatted down, staring at the bronze chains that bound Uzuchi's body, and the holy wings of light behind him spread out silently. He stretched out his hand and tried to twist the chain directly. With his current state of strength, he should be able to crush the chain into fine powder with one hand. But before he could exert any force, the bronze chain emitted a bright red light, and the entire chain was dyed red, tightening Aerith's weak body. Aerith groaned in pain, her pretty face was pale, her beautiful eyelashes trembled slightly, as if she was trapped in an uneasy nightmare. This was the warning of the dragon-binding robe, the living spirit that lost the suppression of the word spirit, and the soldier of eternal harmony regained control of its autonomy. Mingfei frowned slightly and loosened his hand. If he hadn't been worried about hurting the girl, he would have cut the chain with a sword. The dragon-binding robe, my goodness, where did these kidnappers get it from? This is the exclusive alchemical artifact of the hidden mixed blood family in your hometown. They really spent a lot of money on it. Finkel ran over and looked at the chain with a gradually fading red light. Can you untie it? If you want to be on the safe side, it's better for the vice principal to do it himself. Then put it aside for now. In this case, Mingfei did not want to waste too much time, as there were still many things to understand. He looked at the nervous Miyamoto Shia. The heretics used alien creations to drag part of this building into the Nibelungen. Why is there such a huge Nibelungen in Tokyo? Nibelungen? Miyamoto Shio was stunned, then rushed to the window beside him, and was shocked to see the decayed city shrouded in the blood-red sunset and heavy rain. Mingfei did not destroy the two small pyramids on the 42nd floor immediately, because he was not sure what impact would be caused by destroying them. Secondly, since this is the Nibelungen, it means that there may be false gods or powerful aliens here. As the Emperor's angel of death who protects mankind, Mingfei naturally needs to eliminate and purify all these enemies of mankind. Do you have an answer to tell me? Seeing Miyamoto Shio returning, Mingfei asked. Yes, Mr. Mingfei, I can tell you very clearly that we are now in the night food field. The head of the Miyamoto family was pale and terrified. We can also call it the dark side of Tokyo. This is an ancient Nibelung built by the Dragon clan. You actually built a city on the foundation of an alien? What a bold act. Mingfei said coldly. When we found it, we just wanted to make sure it was under the control of the Snake 8 families. Miyamoto Shio hurriedly explained, Tokyo was the residence of the wealthy Edo family before 1457. Later, Otadkan, a retainer of the Uzuchi family, built a city here, and thus the remains of the Night Food Plain were discovered. But later the development of history exceeded our expectations. The Hojo clan supported by the Snake 8 families failed in the war, and Tokugawa Ieyasu won the Battle of Shigehara. He seized Edo and made it the center of the shogunate regime. After the Meiji Restoration, it further became the capital of Japan. It became more and more prosperous, replacing Kyoto as the center of Japan. Okay, let's save the history class for later. Is there any false god in this Nibelungen? Mingfei waved his hand, interrupting Miyamoto Shipshin's history science. False god. According to the principles of alchemy, Nibelungen is a paradoxical space created by alchemy. It is an unstable existence. Once the maintainer of the space dies, Nibelungen will collapse. So the captain is asking where the guy who maintains this Nibelungen is now. The captain will go over and kill it later. Finkel reminded. Mingfei did not refute, which was regarded as tacitly agreeing with Finkel's words. Actually, this theory is not very correct. In addition to those powerful beings that constructed Nibelungen, the alchemical matrix can also maintain the existence of Nibelungen. The alchemical matrix of the night food field has been buried deep in the earth. Sleeping with this huge Nibelungen, we are considered to be those who are strayed into Nibelungen. Miyamoto Shipshin explained. Then what is the purpose of these heretics dragging this place into Nibelungen? Mingfei asked. Maybe, they want the guardians and hunters of the night food plane to destroy us. What is that? The legendary thing, the Dragon clan uses the corpses of their own kind as materials to apply for big alchemical technology, and uses them as guardians of the city. Miyamoto Shio explained, hunters, they are those hybrids named ghosts, who are thrown into the night food plane and turned into zombies, roaming and hunting in this paradoxical space without sunlight. Someone whispered. Who? Miyamoto Shio's face changed, and he immediately looked around vigilantly. Fingal, take the two of them away from here. Mingfei stood up, holding the Jinyu sword in his hand, and his blazing golden eyes stared at the black wall that blocked the aisle. An enemy is coming. Yes, Captain. Without saying a word, Finkel clenched his fists and lifted up Uzuchiria, who was tied up with dragon ropes, and ran towards the safe passage. Before Miyamoto Shio could react to what was happening, he only heard the German strongman shouting at the top of his voice, "Don't stand there. Our captain tells you to run, so you'd better run quickly." Behind that black wall, someone was chanting an unknown ballad softly. The ancient language that had long been lost, with a completely unrecognizable grammatical structure, had an extraordinary beauty of rhyme. Mingfei could not feel the slightest murderous intent, as if he was listening to an ethereal requiem. But then, the calming requiem was interrupted, and a violent vibration woke him up from his sleep. "The break time is over, champion brother." The captain of the battle group asked us to assemble. A pale skull floating in the dim light made a dull sound, and the cold mechanical parts in the eye sockets emitted a faint red light. "Thank you for your concern, all battle brothers. I'm fine. P.S. The next chapter is about what happened before Liu Yongjin returned to his hometown, and the foreshadowing of the future battle group. Chapter 103 On the Piercing Ceremony. I understand." Kato sat up from the sarcophagus and responded to the call of the Serto skull in a deep voice. "You have 30 minutes. The red light in the skull's eye sockets gradually faded, and the micro-anti-gravity engine loaded inside made it blend into the dimness silently. He sat and meditated for a while, recalling the ancient name Mingfei buried deep in his heart in the dream just now, and that beautiful hometown. "We are the Weepers, we are the sons of Saint Jareth, and we fight to protect the humans cherished by the Emperor." Kato grasped the skull amulet hanging on his chest. This was his most precious and most cherished treasure. After a simple prayer, he stood up from the sarcophagus. 2 dim wall lamps lit up in the room, outlining his 2-meter-tall, brave and strong angel body. The long-prepared war group servants outside the door entered the room and presented their masters with a body-covering robe and thirst-quenching nourish. Kato drank the bright red blood wine in the cup, calming the invisible light hunger and thirst. The core gene seed that built this warrior's body can be traced back to St. Gervais, the gene father of the 9th Legion Blood Angels in the Great Crusade. The descendants of angels often have the need to drink human blood, which they call bloodthirst. But their need for blood is not physiological, but comes from the psychic or soul level. When they do not drink blood for a long time, they will become weak or even old. If an angel's descendant cannot resist the temptation of bloodthirst and degenerates and indulges in the pleasure of blood, it will mutate into an ugly monster that is bloodthirsty. In order to improve the transformation, the Mechanicus created a more excellent new gene seed and carried out the 21st Astartes Legion army in the 991st year of the 35th millennium. The Lamenters were established during this founding. The biological sages of the Mechanicus claimed that they had alleviated or even eliminated the hidden defects that had been plaguing the descendants of the Blood Angels. At least this was true at the beginning. The Astartes in the Lamenters had not shown obvious symptoms of bloodthirst. However, it was a great creation jointly studied by the Emperor himself and the biotechnicians of the year, and it was not something that could be easily analyzed by the superfluous technology of the Mechanicus. As time went on, a large number of defects in the new gene seeds were exposed, and signs of bloodthirst reappeared within the Lamenters, and gradually worsened. Cortos had always nobly maintained his rationality and suppressed the bloodthirsty desire brought by the bloodthirst. Only when he was ready to participate in the battle would he drink a cup of courage mixed with blood and wine offered by the servants of the chapter. "Brother champion, you sleep so deeply." A dull sound of footsteps sounded, and an Astartes monk who had already put on dark yellow armor stepped forward, and a generous voice came from the gap in the helmet grill. "Brother Tyrus." The Astartes in front of him was one of his champion guards, and also one of his blood brothers who had fought against the enemy side by side for decades. "Have we encountered the enemy again?" Kato asked. "Let's meet the chapter master to discuss the details." "You still have 25 minutes, champion brother," Tyrus said, and his helmet seemed to be slightly alert. His eyes shot out from the scarlet eyepiece of the helmet and looked at the servant holding the tray beside Kato's. "Pay attention to your etiquette, servant." "Don't be so strict, Tyrus, he has no ill intentions," Kato said, putting the empty wine glass back on the tray. He had noticed this handsome male servant early on. This was very rare. Most of the mortal servants he had seen were thin due to malnutrition, or because of the harsh environment of the planet where they were located, their bodies were ugly and deformed. Before Katos became an Astartes, he was also thin and ugly, and his body was riddled with scars and pollution. After enjoying the holy communion of blood, he slept in the blood coffin and completed the blood trial. When he was removed from the coffin, he had undergone a complete transformation. His body was tall and majestic after the reconstruction, and his muscles were tougher than the refined steel. His face also became handsome and extraordinary, with an unforgettable charm like their angelic gene father. Please forgive me for offending you, sir. The servant lowered his head in fear. It's okay, child. What's your name? Kartos asked gently. The weeks are one of the Lamenters chapters with the gentlest attitude towards mortals. During the rest time of the chapter, some warriors will take the initiative to find servants to express their gratitude for their service. Luli. The servant said softly. Luli sounds a little familiar. Kartos thought for a while. Okay, champion brother, you only have 24 minutes left now. Don't forget that you still have to perform the armor-piercing ceremony. Taylor urged. Okay. Kartos didn't think about it anymore. There were more important things to do right now. He followed Tyrese and walked out of the room with steady steps. The servant who called himself Lily breathed heavily after they left. Who is this guy? Why is his dream like this, or is this guy actually a fantasy lunatic with a Star Wars movie in his head? Damn, Night Taper seems to have a problem and can't be solved, Lily whispered to herself in a language that others couldn't understand, shrinking herself as much as possible in the large servant robe, and a look of fear appeared on her beautiful face. The Dawn Reaper strike cruiser, 8 kilometers long and 1.1 kilometers wide, is one of the only 3 Vanguard-class strike cruisers left in the Weepers. Kartos stood in the armament room, wearing a black tight-fitting armor with unactivated dark silver circuits and connection ports marked on the surface. He was about to perform the armor-piercing ceremony for the power armor. Are you ready, champion of the Lamenters? The tech priest asked. Arm me, let me fight for the Empire and humanity. Kartos opened his hands. The equipment team began to equip him with power armor, different from the power armor made of various parts when Kartos first became an Lamenters. This time he will wear the Mk7 fine power armor cast from the Mechanicus Forge World Nuclear. The technical experts and servitors got busy and began to assemble the various parts of the armor to the champion of the Lamenters. The maintenance servo skull floated in the air, and the ratchet drive and connecting drills made humming and creaking sounds, connecting the pieces of fine armor to the black armor on Kartos' body and then to the black carapace of the subdermal colonization. The tech priests prayed for the protection and smooth operation of the armor, and the servitors with power engine arms assembled the armor boots and greaves on Kartos' legs. Then the crotch, the waist, with each piece of ceramite and adamantium armor added to his body. Kartos also added a shield to his soul. In this war-torn universe, especially for them, the sons of Saint Jareth, this is particularly important. The crane lowered the back armor plate to the corresponding position. 2 mechanical servants with enhanced strength carefully and laboriously lifted the chest armor plate and moved it to the calibration position. With a bang, it locked with the back armor plate. The other 2 servants quickly tightened the hexagonal bolts to seal the armor. On the chest armor, the wings of the blood of St. Jareth looked sacred and flawless. Then the heavy shoulder armor was hung down. The left shoulder armor had been stained with the iconic tearful red heart paint of the Weepers, and the right shoulder armor was the unique mark of his own champion company. Finally, the power backpack unit was connected to the back armor plate. The backpack contained the main power core of this set of armor and the backup battery. The tech priests smeared holy oil and anointing on the joints of the armor, and prayed devoutly to the god of all machines in a low voice. Kartos felt a hint of coldness, and the neural induction link device connected to his black chest armor interface, synchronizing with the black shell interface under the skin. The sensors and nervous system were connected to the artificial muscle fiber bundles and the auspicious array on the armor, and his second heart and third lung received the signal from the power armor monitoring system. With a hum, the power armor system was fully activated, and Kartos felt the endless power surging. Praise the god of all machines. Praise the sacred soul of this armor. It will always fight with the champion warrior of the Weeper. The tech priests praised loudly, sang binary hymns to their heart's content, shook the incense burner in their hands, and sprayed the power armor with holy oil with their other hands. After the armor-piercing ceremony, the fully armed Kartos put on his reinforced armor combat helmet and walked out of the armor room surrounded by the smell of incense. Why don't you wear the Terminator armor? The followers of the god of all machines generously gifted us 2 sets of Terminator power armor. I believe you deserve it, champion brother, said Tyrese, who was waiting outside the door. Including the fine power armor on Kartos, the Lamenters picked up a batch of fine equipment from the Mokor Forge world, including 2 sets of indomitable Terminator power armor, 5 sets of Mk7 fine power armor and a large number of power armor repair and replacement parts, spare servers. This greatly alleviated the poor situation of the chapter and gave several technical sergeants of the chapter a chance to rest. This was the exchange with the Mechanicus. An STC drawing was exchanged for a large number of weapons and equipment. However, since the Lamenters were still carrying out the atonement expedition and were prohibited from replenishing troops and weapons and equipment under normal conditions, the exchange method with the Mechanicus this time became a little different. A cargo ship of the other party crashed on a planet, and then Kartos led the team to recover it. The Terminator power armor is a bit slow, and I am more adept at the traditional fast strike style of the regiment, said Kartos. Chapter 104 Rescue Voyage. Kartos Harkins and his champion company boarded the Thunderhawk gunboat and left the Dawn Reaper, heading for the Mother of Tears, which was located in the center of the fleet. As a fleet-based chapter, the Mother of Tears was the mobile fortress of the Weepers, as well as their monastery, Geneseed Bank, Chapter Hall of Valor, and Holy Relic Collection Library, although there were only a few items. There was once a main battleship that fought with the Weepers, but it was destroyed by the Minotaurs in the battle that shamed the Angel Father, and was confiscated and no longer belonged to the Weepers. On the command deck of the Mother of Tears, the remaining Stripe cruisers and Astartes on the frigate were assembled here. The brothers were in high spirits because Champion Kartos luckily picked up a large amount of weapons and equipment. The exchange with the Mechanicus was carried out in secret, and not many brothers knew about it. The last time they received such a large-scale equipment replenishment was 13 years ago, when they joined forces with 3 companies of the Salamanders to eliminate the Nurgle weapons that invaded the linear system, and obtain some weapons and ammunition assistance. In view of the Salamanders' status as a founding group, the Red Hunters, who were accompanying and supervising the Weep's atonement expedition, turned a blind eye and said nothing more. Today, the Weep's path of atonement has lasted for 80 years, and there are still 20 years left to the end. But the chapter now has only more than 300 Astartes left, and can only maintain the existence of 3 companies. No one knows how long they can move forward as if cursed by doom, and how many human worlds they can save from the hands of the dark galactic enemies. The Weep's chapter master Malakim Forrest glanced at the brothers gathered on the deck, and there was a sense of sadness and resentment around him. The only remaining 321 Weep's warriors silently lined up to face the inspection of the chapter master. Brothers, our astropaths have received a call for help from the Defilin system. Their world is under attack by the Great Devourer. Chapter Master Malakim said in a deep voice. The Weeps did not speak, and heavy breathing came out from the gaps in the helmet grills. They suppressed the anger in their hearts and waited for the order from the chapter master they trusted and respected the most. It was not the first time they fought against those dirty, predatory alien swarms. We may be the only Astartes chapter that has received their call for help. The Great Devourer fleet marked as Kraken is hovering in the Defilin system, and tens of billions of innocent people are waiting for rescue. What do you think we should do, Brother Kartos? The chapter master cast his eyes on Kartos, the youngest champion warrior in the Weep's chapter, who was at the front of the team. We are the sons of Holy Jareth, and we should fight for the Empire to protect humanity. We must do our best to save the citizens of the Empire. Kartos replied in a deep voice, his voice as dull as thunder, and the blood of Holy Jareth on his helmet and chest shone brightly. It is a very rational approach. Captain Malakim nodded. We don't have enough combat power to fight the Great Devourer head-on now, and rescuing people is indeed the top priority. Brothers, do you have any other suggestions? He looked at the fully armed brothers. We should follow the will of the Holy Blood. The Weeps roared in unison, and the thunderous shouts resounded throughout the Mother of Tears. Through the porthole of the Thunderhawk gunboat, Kartos could see the huge building on the hull of the Mother of Tears that looked like a monastery church. Captain Malakim seems to intend for you to lead the Weepers. Tiras said. There is no difference, we are all fighting for the Emperor. Kartos shook his head, his tone calm, and no one knows what fate will be next. He returned to the Dawn Harvester with his 5 champion guards, 2 assault melee squads, and 2 destroyer squads equipped with heavy firepower weapons. The fleet's navigation target changed to the Defra system, and all the Weeps were ready for battle. After 4 days of sailing, the Weeps fleet arrived at the nearest space jump point. Subspace engine is ready. Prepare to switch to navigator control. Jelith force field nominal. In the strategic hall of the Dawn Harvester, the confirmation voices of mortal crew members, technical priests, and navigators echoed. Kartos stood in front of the command seat, his fists clenched at both sides of his body, his eyes fixed on the starry sky on the display screen. He did not try to understand the complicated data flow produced when physics met the metaphysics of the subspace. As Arstates, they were not good at driving warships, and fighting was their duty. Moreover, driving a warship is not something that can be solved by space marines alone. It requires the cooperation of a large number of mortal crew members. He stood here just as a symbol to give the people in the strategic office peace of mind. Every time you sail in the warp, it represents the unknown and danger. No one can guarantee that they can come out safely after entering. The warp is a field that is difficult to describe in human words. All physical laws will be completely invalid in the warp, including time and space. It is possible to receive a message for help from a human world and set out to rescue, but after leaving the warp, it is the time period before the message was sent. If the warp is an ocean, then what humans touch is only the shallow water surface, and sailing in the warp is just sailing on the water with a small boat. When the warp ocean was calm, humans traveled all over the galaxy and established a glorious civilization. And as the ocean became stormy, terrible things raised waves underwater and tore apart any sailing boats, and human civilization was on the verge of extinction. This is the mother of tears. All fleets are ready to start space jump. The countdown begins. Most of the self-aware armed servants and mortal servants stayed in the collective room quietly, tied themselves up with restraints, and took sleeping pills to enter a dormant state. The starry sky suddenly began to ripple like water waves. The ripples expanded rapidly and twisted backwards, and the stars twisted into a vortex, stained with a strange purple-red color. A crack was torn in the physical universe, and the Weeper fleet jumped into the subspace with the physical angular momentum obtained at the moment of the subspace engine start-up. The cold and huge metal shutters closed any porthole of the warship, and the Jella field that isolated the invasion of the subspace force was activated to protect humans from being invaded by those hateful evil forces. The Arstates were all in a state of martial law patrolling the warship. Only their transformed and tempered spirits could not be affected. Lily followed those people at the same status as herself and returned to her bed to tie herself to the bed with a restrained belt. The others didn't seem to notice that there was a beautiful companion among them. Lily looked unhappy. He didn't have much power here, and it was weird and scary everywhere. On the contrary, the opponent's power was terrifying, and his companion alone could kill him. He felt extremely regretful and scared. Now the power of Dream Taper was no longer under his control. There was a higher will that was maintaining this past dream in the other party's mind. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 105 The Guardian. The Tyranites wander the cold void between galaxies, hungry for planets with life. This definition can be expanded to organic matter, organisms, water, soil, just to fill their ancient hunger that seems to never be satisfied. The terrifying and hungry hive mind does not care what the food calls itself, it just marks the amazing biological richness of the galaxy in its own unique way. Every feast makes the hive mind stronger, taking the genetic essence and genetic information of the organisms for itself. It becomes more cunning, constantly improving the defensive systems it already has, and designing new strategies, while creating new horrors to deal with the fierce resistance of various foods in the galaxy. To destroy these terrifying aliens, only fierce swords and roaring guns can be used. The Tyranites are the absolute masters at the biological level. Even if a deadly toxin is developed to effectively kill the swarm, the next batch of swarms released by the hive mind will quickly develop corresponding immunity. It is said that even the horrible virus of the plague evil god Nurgle cannot keep up with the genetic evolution of the great devourer. But the hive fleet did not advance unhindered. No matter when and where, there were warriors, men and women who persisted in resisting them. No matter how slim the hope was, there would always be people who would stand up without hesitation, and finally end up with death as a reward. When the Weeper fleet arrived at the different system, the navigator and the astropath screamed in pain. The sidekick shadow of the hive mind had already enveloped the system, and what could be heard in the warp was the endless hungry howl of the hive mind. The third black eye on the navigator's forehead was bleeding black blood, and they were almost severely injured. They had to stop contacting the warp. Instead, they used electromagnetic wave communication to contact the planetary defense department of the different hive world. Cortos stood on the edge of the command throne, staring at the huge observation window with the Dawn Harvester. In the dazzling light of the distant stars, groups of dark shadows like festering wounds could be seen circling densely. The fleet of the Great Devourer had arrived here before them. "Gather all the weapons on board," said Cortos. A holographic strategic display, with a series of dim images with several symbols, marked the galaxy and the ugly parasites that wanted to devour it. On the Fahrenheit planet and its satellites, the Dawn Harvester's divination instrument could clearly distinguish the countless bright spots surrounding them. My lord, the gravitational disturbance is still continuing. In addition to the tens of thousands of signals from Fahrenheit 2 and 3, the fleet of the Great Devourer is still coming here in an endless stream. The observation servant gave disturbing data. The Planetary Defense Department of the High Planet has sent back the news that the No. 1 Hide World is being evacuated, and the No. 2 Hide World is resisting the attack of the Great Devourer. Satellite No. 3 has lost its low Earth orbit and air superiority, and the Planetary Defense Department is unable to rescue it. The communication servant also quickly reported the information sent back by the Defuran world. Then we need to assist in evacuating and rescuing the people on World 2 and Moon 3, and buy time for World 1 to evacuate. Cartos made his decision quickly and asked the chapter master to lead the team to rescue the people on Moon 3, even if there were only 100 people left. Chapter Master Malakin agreed, knowing the character of the youngest champion in the history of the chapter. Just like the brother whose name and glory he inherited, Cartos would risk his life to save and protect the citizens of the Empire who were harmed by the enemy. The future of the Lamenters Chapter needs such people to protect it. Led by the Dawn Reaper, the Vanguard-class strike cruiser, a cruiser specializing in long-range shooting, the Tears of Wrath, the Wings of Vengeance, the Blessing and other 6 different types of frigates were separated from the Lamenters' main fleet and headed for the Devon Moon 3. As the fleet accelerated towards the target, the huge holographic ball of the strategic hull was blurred by the number of maddening biological ships. A huge black biological ship was hovering in the orbit of the satellite. It had even dropped a thick and ferocious feeding tube to the surface of the satellite. An astonishing number of biological ships protected it to prevent its feeding from being disturbed. This separated insect nest fleet was marked as Torrential Alpha-03. Scan the surface of the satellite to determine whether there are still living forces. Cartos said. Beta, -7687, Kappa, 4820, there are still living forces in the industrial city. The scan results were magnified and displayed through the holographic ball. A flickering blazing red light could be vaguely seen, the light of the mortal soldiers' laser guns. All personnel assemble and prepare for battle. Cartos immediately gave the order. Some Tyranite biological ships had already noticed such an uninvited guest who seemed to intend to disturb them. They turned around in space and showed their ferocious bloody mouths to the Weepers. The target has been marked and locked. The weapons control supervisor at the Dawn Harvester said. The remaining warships also formed up according to their positions, and their weapon systems locked onto the incoming Zed fleet. Open fire, said Cartos. The 3 strike cruisers launched a fierce round of fire with fierce multi-barrel laser cannons and heavy torpedoes on the broadside, and the frigates assisted with light cannons and high-damage mounted torpedoes. 13 minutes later, the Tyranite warship cluster lit up with dazzling flames. The Weep's attack had significant results. Broken grey-black shell fragments and huge pieces of flesh splashed everywhere, and frozen body fluids floated in the clouds between the corpses of biological ships. Their biological ships were not as good as the Empire's warships, and they had no shield protection, but their number was much larger. For every ship destroyed, 7 or 8 ships ran out to take its place. They were successfully attracted by the Weepers, and a considerable number of biological warships left the mothership and flew towards the small fleet of the Weepers at high speed. After the second round of firing, the Tear of Wrath turned its bow and fired a dazzling supernova cannon. The Dawn Reaper took the opportunity to break away from the team with 4 frigates and rushed to the 3rd satellite at the fastest speed in another direction. Their fleet was not strong enough, and a head-on fight with the Great Devourer would be a waste of life. Cartos could only use guerrilla tactics to separate some of the forces of Torrential Alpha-03. But even so, there was still a considerable number of Tyranite biological ships in the satellite orbit. They were far less majestic and powerful than the Imperial warships, and they were so ugly that they could almost scare mortals with weak faith crazy. Some looked like slugs, some looked like void whales, anglerfish, and some looked like strange conchs. Some had huge blades or armored beaks on their front. Some had fins, some had tails, and some had atrophied hands and feet. Every possible combination of life was there, but they were all merged, changed, and succumbed to the will of the hive. There was a terrible consistency in their diversity. Tentacle-bearing ships dominated the scene, but others had ramps as their bows, or carried oversized biological weapons controlled by executioners or queens hidden in huge, never-closing maws. Bells and alarms rang continuously, beeps and shouts were heard, and living torpedoes and biological spores continued to penetrate the protection of the ship's void shields. Evil aliens were hatched, and the commando squads left on the warships quickly cleaned up with armed servants. The Dawn Reaper trembled violently, and sharp alarms filled the ears. But as the door of the airdrop chamber closed, the noise suddenly ended. "Brothers, we're approaching the surface of the satellite and will begin airdropping in about 4 minutes. In the helmet, Cortos said from the communication system, "To protect the cherished ones, we will win. We will win." The 35 Astates brothers following the champion warriors responded loudly. Cortos and the 15 brothers in the drop chamber all hung up the mechanical arms for airborne landing. The Dawn Harvester will do its best to drop them and the armed servants to the surface of the third satellite. The airborne compartment fell into darkness. Only the working machinery and the weeping red hearts on the shoulder armor of the Weeps were still emitting a faint red light. The Thinker system on the warrior's armor began to receive various data. The pulse laser flashed on the edge of their lenses, projecting a virtual world panel display directly to the retina. The lines of the airborne compass were flashing, and the 2 circles contained in the crosshays were divided with perfect measurement. Airborne coordinates confirmed. With the help of neural links, the warriors added the airborne coordinates to the grid. The airborne landing will begin in 1 minute. The last weapon and armor check. Cortos said. The machine soul inside this Mk7 precision power armor performed a series of automatic corrections, and the air inside began to be pressurized in preparation for the airborne landing. Cortos checked his weapons for the last time. The finely crafted chainsword and bolter were magnetically attached to his waist, equipped with deadly hellfire bombs. In his hand, he held a master-level power spear that looked simple but was actually finely forged. It was the holy relic of the Weeks chapter, the price of victory. Fighting with this weapon was a supreme honor for a Weeks warrior. He had heard the stories of this weapon circulating in the chapter, but now all he thought about was the innocent people struggling in the mouths of the hateful Tyranites. The Dawn Reaper and the 4 accompanying frigates were engaged in a dangerous tug-of-war with the Tyranite biological ships. These ships, which seemed to be flying slowly, would suddenly burst into amazing speed after approaching, and use their tentacles to roll up and break the ships, sending them into the bloody mouth. At the cost of a frigate, the Dawn Reaper finally approached the orbit of the third satellite. 10 seconds to count down. 9 seconds. The machine began to count down, and the drop pod was shaking violently. Cortos and his brothers closed their eyes and prayed to the Emperor and the Gene Father. 4 seconds, mark. 3, 2, 1, airborne. Units 261 at 261B detach. 2 dark yellow drop pods began to fall towards the surface of the satellite, along with 5 Land Raider tanks. Although the model was old, the Weeks were still happy to accept the gift from the Sage of the Mechanicus. In addition, several various flying vehicles carrying armed servants flew down to the satellite. They did not have the strong flesh and power armor of the Astates, and airborne would only turn them into a pool of meat paste when they fell to the ground. After the drop, the Dawn Reaper quickly left, followed by an astonishing number of Tyranite biological ships. They would not come back until the Cortos champion confirmed that they could come to rescue. A battle was going on the ground. The Deflan, the third satellite, is an industrial world used to produce various materials needed by the Empire, and has a certain defensive force. But from the sky, the surface of the planet is already a purple-black ocean, and countless Tyranites are besieging the only remaining human city Lucatide. It's like a lonely boat that can be swallowed up at any time in the stormy waves. A large number of knife bugs are constantly trying to flatten the defense line of the human defenders as cannon fodder. Tyranite warriors of various forms also want to rush into the defense line and slaughter humans with the stepping steps of the knife bugs. It seems that because the defensive force on this satellite makes the Hive will think that it is not enough to consume too much power to deal with, there are not many large Tyranite creatures with high threats. The airdrop pod fell with a sound like thunder, dragging a long bright flame tail like a meteorite. Boom. 2 bright yellow airdrop pods landed slightly in front of the human defense line. The violent shockwave when landing made the ground tremble, and for a time it actually covered the rush of the insectoid. Bang! The door of the drop chamber with a tearful red heart fell down, and Cortos and his brothers filed out of the chamber. He and his champion guards plunged into the insectoid like a sharp knife. In just a few seconds, Cortos had already rushed to one of the Tyranite warriors and swung the power spear in his hand. This is the fastest and most efficient way to deal with the tyrannide troops. Kill the swarm node creature, and the remaining insects will lose the control of the leader and scatter. The tyrannide warrior is the most adaptable organism among the tyrannides, and an unstoppable killing machine. Its eyes flashing with black light stared at the canned food rushing towards it, waving its 4 flexible limbs, and fighting with sharp bone swords and claws. The price of victory activated the decomposition field, and the blood blue energy field surrounded the spear tip. After a brief confrontation, the ugly and hideous head of the tyrannide warrior was pierced. The knife insects that were densely besieging them soon lost control and scattered. Kartos turned and locked onto the next Z node creature. The other 2 destroyer teams used heavy weapons such as storm bolters, fragmentation missile launchers, and fragmentation grenades to cleanse the invading Zerg tide with amazing killing efficiency and stabilize the defense line. It's an angel. The great god emperor sent his angels to save us. We're saved. In the back, the planetary defensive forces and militia cheer excitedly. Chapter 106 Emperor's Light. Feng Jianli's face turned pale, and he tightly grasped the laser rifle in his hand. If interstellar battleships and armored giants were still within his acceptance range, then the countless sharp sickle-shaped insectoids that he could see all over the mountains and plains made him a little nervous. How long would it take to wend? Feng Jianli looked at the bright yellow figures fighting in the sea of alien insects in the distance, and the idea of killing them in his heart had long disappeared. He only wanted to wend this nightmare as soon as possible. But what he didn't notice was that there was a strange and hideous insect in the sky that was wrapped in white light, with a huge head but a slender body, which was attracted by his fear. The sky was also filled with various hideous tyrannide creatures, gargoyles, sky demons, flying warriors. The evacuation of the weeps encountered a huge obstacle, and the escort fighter groups kept crashing. At the same time, after suffering the first round of ruthless and cold attacks, the ground forces of the tyrannides began to increase their offensive, and hatched spores continued to fall from the biological mothership in orbit that cast a huge shadow on the ground. The current air defensive force of the human front can only rely on the laser guns in their hands, and the anti-aircraft artillery has long ceased to exist. The progress of Kartos and his champion guards in killing node creatures has become slower and slower. As more and more spores hatch, the troops of the swarm have also evolved, and the node creatures have also changed from tyrannide warriors to chief warriors, and then to sadistic queens. Kartos roared, and the power backpack behind him gave him a powerful jumping power. He jumped high, and price of victory pierced the head of the sadistic queen, and the hard chitinous carapace was destroyed by the decomposition field of vague blue energy. Another node creature died. We're a little alone, champion warrior. His champion guard reminded. How long would it take to evacuate? Kartos drew out his spear and turned to fight with a tyrannide warrior who rushed over with superb skills. Kill, kill, and kill again. The black flames reignited. The tyrannide warrior failed to spit out deadly acid before dying, and the tip of Kartos' spear pierced its jaw and killed it. It may take another 30 minutes. Flirt replied. Then we retreat and buy them a little more time. Kartos said. Even though they killed the enemy with chainswords or power weapons most of the time, the explosive bombs were almost used up due to the astonishing number of Zerg enemies. The heavy firepower of the destroyer squad and the land raiders covered their retreat. Kartos took off his severely damaged tactical helmet, revealing his handsome and resolute face, and a golden nail on the forehead of his skull gleamed. This is a service nail, which means that he has served in the weeks for 100 years. The air was filled with the sickening stench of tyrannide blood, but Kartos seemed to be unaware of it. He looked at his helmet, the eyepiece was cracked, and a shocking scratch almost split the helmet in half. The scar was caused by the powerful sadistic queen just now. Not only the helmet, but also his fine power armor was covered with various scratches and traces of strong acid corrosion, and the Weeper logo on the shoulder armor became pitted. Night fell, double darkness, but not because the satellite had turned its back to the sun, but because the sky was already obscured by smoke and spore clouds and orbiting swarms. On the horizon, tentacle-like supply ships were poking out of the void, supported by huge veiny airbags. The rapid expansion of the airbags made a rubbery rumble on the plains. Capillary towers had risen from the ground to feed the appetite of the hive mothership, like huge chimneys, as magnificent as any imperial industrial structure. They are spewing out moving clouds of spores and microorganisms to help the hive mothership digest better. This satellite has reached the final stage of digestion by the hive mind. It will begin to taste all the biomass on this satellite, including the node creatures killed by Kartos and his men. All corpses will be recycled. They are just soulless killing puppets controlled by the hive mind, and dead flesh can be recycled to create new flesh. This is the powerlessness and despair of the Imperial Army when fighting against the Tyranids. For the hive mind, as long as the recycled biomass is greater than the consumed biomass, it is a victory. Now, there is only the last tiny piece of biomass left on this satellite, which is still struggling, and it is mixed with the hard and difficult to swallow steel will. The swarm surrounded the isolated island, but did not attack immediately. They do not have the emotion of fear. Sometimes they retreat on the battlefield for a better attack. Waiting for a powerful node creature to give orders. For example, the hive tyrant in the distance that is as huge as a hill. Although it looks like a larger and more ferocious Tyranid warrior. In fact, it is the most dangerous of all the ground creatures of the Great Devourer. It has a high degree of intelligence and is the embodiment of the will of the hive. If the weaks want to evacuate next, I'm afraid someone will have to stay here to cover the rear. It's time to retreat, champion brother. We can't stay here any longer. The weaks brothers reminded in a deep voice. They saw the determined eyes of the youngest champion brother of the chapter, and knew what he was thinking. You take them away, I'll cover your ear. Cortos shook his head. This is my responsibility as a champion. This won't work. The weaks chapter needs your leadership in the future. You can't die here. Tyrus said in a deep voice. There are brothers and seniors in the chapter who are older and more experienced than me. This is not an excuse. Don't waste unnecessary time. Take the remaining people and brothers away. Corto's voice became cold. Every second wasted, the people and servants behind him who were rescued would have less chance of escaping. The warriors looked at each other for a few seconds, and finally put down their weapons and performed the final holy blood ceremony to Cortos. May your soul return to the side of St. Gervais. You'll leave too. Cortos said to his champion guards. If the champions are gone, what is the use of the champion guards? Brother Tyrus laughed heartily. I will fight side by side with you until we die a beautiful death together. Brother Anger said. Okay. Cortos nodded and looked at the hideous and terrifying Zeg tyrant in the distance. Then let us continue to move forward, for the people we cherish, to die a beautiful death together. He slammed his fist into his chest, took control of the price of victory again, and charged towards the endless sea of Zegs in front. For the Emperor. For St. Gervais. For the Emperor. For St. Gervais. The champion guards shouted, followed their champions, and merged into the sea of aliens. Their oars could not be covered even by the roar of several Thunderhawk gunboats taking off. The power backpack was fully powered, and the machine soul of the power armor seemed to feel the anger and sorrow of its master, and it showed itself in the most perfect state. Cortos' speed reached the extreme. He held the price of victory in one hand and the chainsaw sword in the other, and fought madly in the sea of the hive. Kill, kill, and kill again. The black fire of anger was burning fiercely. His champion guards also fell into a frenzy, fighting with the aliens with the weapons in their hands, and using their palms when their weapons were broken, but despite their age, defeat was inevitable. Cortos' champion guards fell one after another. Tyrus was chopped in half by a chief warrior. Angel was grabbed by dozens of sky demons and torn apart in the air. A ball of acid fired by a bombardment beast melted for it. When Cortos rushed to the front of the hive tyrant and faced it and its tyrant guards, he was the only one left, and the brothers who had fought with him for 100 years were all dead. His finely crafted power armor was also shattered, and the abominable Tyranid creatures were gnawing at his superhuman body, trying to get into his body to taste the delicious angel blood. But Cortos was unaware of it, and there was anger burning in his eyes. The hive tyrant was taller than the dreadnought, covered with a thick and hideous chitinous carapace. Its fists were connected to four matching spirit bone blades, with heavy ends and krill-like cutters. The week's champion Cortos faced the hive tyrant. Or rather, Saintly Les faced Horus. Horus. You traitor. You betrayed us. After tenaciously enduring the torture of the Black Fury Zebs dozens of times, Cortos took the initiative to embrace the Black Fury in his rage. The biggest drawback of the week's gene seed was fully manifested decades ago. Because of their soft hearts, they will suffer more when tortured by the Black Fury. In the psychic illusion, Horus the Deceiver stood on the battlefield as huge as a giant, and his charming smile made him cold and ruthless. Arrogance replaced confidence, and wisdom shone in the noble eyes. Where the corrupt power of the ancient evil gods burned, the furious power made him frantically launch a desperate attack on the tyrant guard. The dark rage was engulfing his consciousness, and with the fall of the Gene Father Saint, he reached the edge of darkness. Cortos felt the suffocating darkness, but not without hope. He recalled that when he was a humble human slave, Cortos Harkins was killed by an orc to save him. He cried and couldn't understand why a noble warrior who had fought for hundreds of years would die to save a humble slave of his. But now, he has no regrets. Everything the Empire guards is everything we cherish. Cortos' consciousness gradually blurred, darkness stained everything in the world, his soul was leaving his body. Behind that curtain of real space, something was whispering, greedily staring at his soul. Darkness. Darkness. A little light. The golden shining light dispelled all the darkness and illuminated everything around him. In the distance, a noble angel flapped his white and holy wings and circled in the sky. Countless dirty and ugly aliens were purified by the angel's sword. "Oh my God, holy Leno," Cortos' soul murmured, lying in the warm and soft golden light. But there was a more dazzling golden light. With it came thunder, the thunder of the birth and death of stars. The light also turned into lightning between the nebulae. It was still golden, the purest gold. It was the golden light from the throne. And that thunder, that was the voice of a supreme being, so great that sound could not carry it, so profound that words could not explain it. "For humanity, become my sword," the great all declared to Cortos. Cortos took a deep breath, and his soul reached out and grasped the golden lightning. Boom. A golden light brighter than the sun lit up on the Default and the third satellite, and the Hive mothership hovering above the satellite orbit was pierced through the huge ship by a golden sword blade burning with blazing flames. The mothership let out a wail, and fell to the surface of the satellite with flames. Another sword blade passed by, and a brilliant golden sword mark was drawn in the sky above the Default and the second world, and countless Hive fleets were reduced to ashes. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Cortos suddenly woke up and saw the black wall in front of him. The pair of golden wings of light behind him became more solid and shining. Chapter 107 Atonement. Cortos Harkins, or Mingfei, let out a manic roar. The nearly materialized golden wings behind him waved wildly with the sword in his hand. In an instant, it was like countless brilliant golden lightnings, tearing the black wall in front of him into pieces. The last scene of the fight with the Tyranids still remained in his mind. The aftermath of the Black Fury made him have an illusion that the black body of the Tyrant guard was in front of him. But after a moment, he calmed down again, and the warm and peaceful golden light soothed his soul. "I am Cortos Harkins, and also Mingfei. I am the son of St. Giles, the guardian of mankind, and the loyal warrior of the Emperor," Mingfei muttered to himself in a deep voice. After a moment, he raised his head and saw the human curled up on the ground not far away. The other party trembled weakly, and his eyes were pale, as if he had been greatly frightened. His expression became indifferent and angry, and he stepped forward with the Jinyu grey sword burning with golden flames. The source girl, Kazama. Mingfei looked at the boy's beautiful but pale face and recognized who he was. He recalled the inexplicable ballad he heard before re-entering the memory of fighting against the Kraken Hive fleet in the Default Galaxy. I think that was the ability of the word spirit. The dream taper, which made him return to the memory of dying as the champion of the Lamenters. That Luli must be him. Although he didn't know what means this word spirit would use to kill him in his dream. But it was obvious that Kazama underestimated the past deep in his soul. Mingfei walked in front of the unconscious Kazama and raised the blade. He only needed one sword to kill this heretic who peeped into his dream. But after a moment, he put down the sword again. He recalled the sacred golden light of the throne and the great declaration like thunder. There was no doubt that the great existence on the golden throne responded to him. After being swallowed by the black anger, the Emperor saved him and gave him the power to better protect mankind, the Emperor's God-chosen warrior. This also explains why the Emperor blessed him with divine power after he returned to his hometown. But before experiencing this dream, he had no memory of this part of glory. And, with the power of the Emperor, why didn't he let himself stay in that world to continue fighting for humanity, but let himself return to his hometown? There are many things Mingfei still can't figure out. At this moment, the boy curled up on the ground groaned in pain. Mingfei frowned and held back the anger in his heart to purify the other party. His words have other uses. You should be glad that you are not crazy, heretic. Mingfei said coldly. The boy trembled and climbed up, and his empty eyes regained some spirit when he touched Mingfei. It seems that his soul will always remain in that memory that is like a nightmare to mortals. After a while, he spoke softly. Kazama Lily's personality has collapsed. Now there is only Yuanzin. Mingfei snorted. It seems that he has paid the price for blaspheming us natives. His eyes swept over Yuan Xin's delicate face, but unfortunately, this does not mean that you can make up for your sins. Your personality must also atone for this, you have no right to refuse. Atonement. Yuan Xin raised her head and stared at Lu Mingfei's indifferent expression. He and Kazama Luli had experienced the other's memory that looked sci-fi but was actually full of weirdness and darkness. The extremely evil ghost of the fierce ghost group, the violent and even fearless personality of Kazama Luli, did not show any strength and state of mind in the other's dream, just like a frightened bird. Even when he died, he didn't know what attacked him from where. I understand. What do you want me to do? Yuan Xin whispered. Your word spirit ability. Now tell me everything about it. Lu Mingfei said. You mean the dream taper? Yuan Xin regrouped. The dream tape's serial number in the word spirit periodic table is 91, which is a high-risk word spirit. The hybrid with this word spirit can store and copy other people's nightmares, use it as a cage, and make the other party immersed in dreams for a long time and unable to escape. Feng Jianlei kills people in dreams in this way. If the enemy believes that he is killed in the dream, he will also die mentally in reality. Because your mental will is too strong, he can only enter your nightmare memory, but because your dream is beyond his imagination, he also found that the dream taper had a problem on the way and could not take the initiative to solve it, so he could only passively follow you forward. In the end, he was killed by an unknown creature and his spirit was broken. Killed by what? Lu Mingfei frowned. I don't know, it was just that my mind suddenly became confused and painful, and then my head exploded. Yuan Xin showed a look of fear on her face. That should be a brainworm. This is their usual method of killing. Then besides you and me, can this word spirit also drag a third person into my dream? Lu Mingfei asked. Theoretically, it is possible to open such a field, but I haven't tried it. Yuan Xin said softly. Then you better be able to do this, otherwise you won't even have a chance to atone for your sins. I understand. That dream, is it something you really experienced? Yuan Xin asked softly. Yes. Lu Mingfei did not deny it. This was not something that needed to be concealed. The purpose of keeping Yuan Xin was to better use his word spirit, for future combat training at the Warriors of the Weeping Angels. He started as a combat servant of the Weeps and became a champion warrior of the Weepers. He experienced countless fierce battles with various enemies. Every battle is the best battlefield, which can allow the Warriors of the Weeping Angels to grow from the cruel battles of blood and fire. Shuzaham calls the war captain. How is the situation over there? Do you need support? Shuzaham's call came from the headset. Everything is normal here. Where are you now? Lu Mingfei took a deep breath and replied by pressing the headset. At least in his hometown, he still has brothers who can fight side by side with him. I'm on the 40th floor now. There are things that look like Deadpool trying to rush up from below, but I have purified them all. In addition, a mentally disturbed survivor was found, wearing the clothes of the Japanese branch, but he is obviously not Japanese. Shuzaham said. Then come up and join us first. Lu Mingfei paused. Brother, has your piety received a response from the Great Emperor? You will know when I come up, Captain. Chapter 108 Meeting an acquaintance. When seeing the golden light burning like a flame on Shuzaham's body, Lu Mingfei felt a burst of joy and peace of mind. Lu Mingfei did not doubt the faith of his fighting brother. Although he seemed to be taciturn, he often took action to prove his bravery, such as the ruthless purification of alien heretics. The only flaw, and the most uncertain point whether it could get the Emperor's attention, Shuzaham's not so pure human blood. Although the blood of Lu Mingfei's body was not pure, his soul had fought for 100 years in that cold universe to protect mankind, proving his loyalty. Your loyalty has won the Emperor's attention, brother. Lu Mingfei patted Shuzaham on the shoulder and said solemnly. This is my honor. Shuzaham performed the Sky Eagle salute. His face seemed calm, but his shock and excitement could still be seen between his eyebrows. How do you feel now? I am full of strength and want to destroy all enemies of mankind. Shuzaham said in a deep voice. It should be so. Lu Mingfei nodded, looking at the man behind Shuzaham who looked a little painful and stared at him with hopeful eyes. Who is he? I don't know. When I saw him, he was surrounded by a group of Deadpools. Shuzaham moved his feet slightly. Surrounded? Yes, just surrounded. This is very unusual. Those aliens who only have flesh and blood in their eyes did not hurt him. Shuzaham said. What's your name? Lu Mingfei asked, and the pair of bright and clean wings behind him made him look more like a holy fighting angel. For the descendants of St. Gervais, this is a symbol of glory. It is said that the father of Genes was born with a pair of pure white wings when he was a child. The Emperor even hung a sacred portrait of this descendant in front of the Palace of Holy Terror. The Astartes jetpacks equipped by the Lamenters Chapter Holy Blood God will also be equipped with iron wings to imitate the angel wings of the father of Genes. When jumping from a height, the battle-monk equipped with a double wing jump pack will spread his wings like the legendary Angel of Revenge, giving fear to the enemy and hope to his comrades. Ronald Tang, the man saw Mingfei approaching, and the painful look on his face seemed to ease a lot. "I'm Mingfei, the commander of the Weeping Angels." As soon as Mingfei finished speaking, old Tang's eyes lit up. He was a little more excited, and came up to him excitedly as if he saw a fellow countryman in a foreign country. "Hey Mingfei. Do you know me?" Mingfei was a little surprised. "It's me, Ming. I'm old Tang. The old Tang in the StarCraft group. You asked me to teach you English, have you forgotten?" Ronald Tang said while making various gestures, trying to prove that he was the netizen. Mingfei frowned slightly, trying to search for information about old Tang from the dusty hometown memory disk. But it seems that he really had such an online friend in the past. For several nights, they controlled the races in the game and happily drove each other in a game of StarCraft. Although they had known each other for a short time, they had a good relationship. "Why don't you play StarCraft anymore? I have been sending you private messages for the past few months, but you didn't reply. I thought you were caught in an internet cafe as a miner and quit the internet, but now I see that you have changed a lot. You're obviously cosplaying Tyrell." Old Tang wanted to reach out and touch the pair of light wings behind Mingfei curiously, but he retracted his hand under Shuzaham's cold gaze. "Yeah, I remember." Mingfei nodded slightly to show his courtesy to this online friend. "Then what is the reason for you to appear here? I remember that you live in the United States." "I am not working, I have to support myself." While speaking, old Tang shifted his attention from the pair of wings to Mingfei's handsome and calm face. He suddenly felt a chill on his back. He remembered the bounty order with a reward of up to 3.5 billion. He never paid much attention to it. Although his name was the same as his online friend Mingmin, the other party was in Japan, and Mingmin was a lonely kid who was studying in high school in China and was said to have never been born in the United States. Just like one day when he woke up and opened the mobile group, a friend who was very familiar with him said, "It's urgent. Where is it safer to hide if you are wanted?" You would probably laugh and give this silly friend some silly advice. Who would have thought that this silly netizen was actually wanted? Work. But you shouldn't be an employee here. Mingfei raised his eyebrows and looked at Lao Tang with a pair of golden eyes. Lao Tang felt guilty. This was the most fatal thing. He was still acting with the gang that was chasing Mingfei without knowing it. As for the fate of the gang that was chasing Mingfei, Lao Tang had already seen the headless corpse lying on the ground not far away. The bandit mask in the corpse's hand looked very familiar. It was obvious that his online friend was not as simple as a Kazakh angel. He immediately raised his hands and shouted, "It's none of my business, Ming. I'm just running errands and delivering things. I'm not in the same group with them." "Delivering things? Go on. Before I think you're a heretic." "That's how it is, Ming, Captain Fei. Please believe me." After a vivid explanation, Lao Tang's somewhat funny and handsome face showed an expression of heartache and repentance, saying that he would resolutely follow the footsteps of justice and not go astray again. But Mingfei still stared at Lao Tang, with golden light flowing in his eyes. "I asked you to deliver the alien creation to form an alchemical matrix to drag part of this building into Niblung. The heretic who served as a sacrifice or a container can do it alone, and you are not very useful. You should have other arrangements, or play an important role in this farce," he said in a cold voice, and immediately keenly noticed something wrong in this farce. Mingfei hated the feeling of being arranged by others. This reminded him of the group of despicable dark elves he encountered in the past. Not long after he became the champion warrior of the Lamenters, the elder aliens also congratulated him in their own way. They secretly attacked a central world planet, and when Mingfei led 4 teams to rescue, they found that they had stepped into a trap set by the Dark Elder. The Blade Queen of a sect and her warriors wanted to prove that they were the best warriors with the blood of the new champion, so they set up a device that could fold dimensions around a city early on. After Mingfei entered the city, the device was activated, and while surrounding and blocking the entire city, it also released a large number of demons and alien beasts, turning it into a bloody chaotic arena and also a stage for the Dark Elders to perform. Although this bloody competition ended with the victory of the Lamenters, it also paid a tragic price. All the Astates brothers except Mingfei died. I'm not an important character. I'm just a passerby. Old Tang wanted to cry but had no tears. The attitude of this netizen didn't seem very friendly. Just when Mingfei was thinking whether to purify the other party cleanly or leave him to find out the heretic who started the farce, he heard an ancient and melodious ballad again. He subconsciously looked at Yuan Xin, but Yuan Xin was still sitting there in a daze. The chanting of the ballad seemed to come from the ancient times, and the lingering sound echoed in the building, as if trying to awaken something. Old Tang's expression suddenly twisted, and he covered his head with a look of great pain. Chapter 109. Mutation. What's wrong with you? Mingfei frowned slightly and tightened his grip on the Jingyu greatsword in his hand. This was not the first time he had seen such an abnormal phenomenon. It was possible that something was stuffed into his body. The heretics here seemed to like to do such despicable acts. My head hurts so much. Old Tang crouched on the ground, holding his head in pain. He felt as if his whole body was burning, and his consciousness and vision were constantly heating up. It was that song. Old Tang usually liked to listen to music, such as Chu, Taylor, Britney. He also had his own opinions on music appreciation. If his head didn't hurt so much now, he might have commented on this song. But the song was not a question of whether it was good or not. The ancient ballad seemed to have turned into an invisible blade, madly stirring his brain, and something that had been forgotten and sealed was flowing out bit by bit, returning to his body. 10 minutes ago, Old Tang took off his gangster suit, stripped off a black windbreaker worn by the staff here, and tried to find a place to hide and wait until it was safe before coming out. Then he felt that his small pistol could not bring much sense of security, so he returned to the 30th floor and planned to pick up the knife that Santon had used to cut his intestines. Then, he ran into a group of black monsters who were gnawing at Santon's body happily. One of the monsters turned around and had a piece of intestine in its mouth. Private Marseille. Old Tang was so scared that his face turned green. He screamed and ran away, and the group of black monsters chased him relentlessly. It didn't take long for him to be caught up. The black monsters were so fast that some of them jumped on the wall nimbly to block his retreat and surrounded him. Just when Old Tang lamented that he must work hard to exercise in his next life, the group of monsters did not attack his intestines, but just surrounded him, and their dark golden eyes stared at him. Until the cold-faced guy with the flame special effect appeared, he was finally saved. But then, Old Tang suddenly started to have a headache, as if something was digging into his heart. Recall the past, Your Highness Norton. Someone whispered to him. What, Your Highness? I'm just an insignificant passerby. Old Tang whispered to himself. Norton and Ronald are pronounced similarly in American pronunciation. He endured the discomfort in his body and followed the cold-faced young man who saved his life upstairs. Recall the past, Your Highness Norton. Someone sang to him like this. Old Tang curled up on the ground and covered his ears, trying to block out the strange ballad, but it was still useless. The song seemed to hit his heart directly. Min, help me. He tried harder to crawl towards the holy angel. Ronald Tang did not believe in religion, but at this time, only under the holy light of the angel could he isolate the maddening pain. But he did not notice the sword burning with golden flames in the angel's hand. Find the singing heretic, brother. Keep him alive. Mingfei said coldly. Understood. Shuzham nodded and left quickly with a knife. As for the netizen in front of him, the other party hugged his calf, like a drowning man grabbing a life-saving straw. Although his face was somewhat relieved, he still looked tortured by pain. Mingfei squatted down, and the pair of light wings behind him stretched out, wrapping up Old Tang who was lying on the ground holding his legs. If the psychic light had no soothing effect, he would give Old Tang a quick death of mercy. With the influx of psychic light, Old Tang's painful groans were much lighter, and a clean golden light shone in his eyes. It was as if the angel's light was washing his tortured soul. Alive, finally it doesn't hurt so much. Which bastard is singing? It's like he's trying to kill me. Old Tang hugged Mingfei's legs and panted, as if he had been pardoned. Even Mingfei himself was a little surprised. He didn't expect that the psychic light on him was actually effective. Wow, Captain, your angel look is getting more and more eye-catching. From today on, you are definitely the most beautiful kid in castle. Finger's flattering voice sounded from the side. Finger ran back holding Uzagieri, who was bound by the dragon rope. It seemed that he realized that there was something wrong with the ballad, and he decisively chose to reunite with Mingfei. It was always right to hold on to his captain's solid thighs. But he suddenly noticed that there was something wrong with the way his captain stared at him. Private Marseille, Captain Sumat. I didn't see anything. Finger realized that he might have seen something he shouldn't have seen, and quickly turned around. Lumenfei sighed and glanced at Yuan Xin. It seems that the training of this battle brother must be put on the agenda as soon as possible. Where is the head of the Miyamoto family? He asked, and didn't see the figure of the head of the Miyamoto family. He said he wanted to go upstairs to check if there were any people in the computer room. I told him that in horror movies, people who have to go separately are often the ones who die the fastest, but he didn't listen to me. Finkel shrugged and said, "Boom." There was a loud noise downstairs, and the singing stopped abruptly. It was obvious that Shuzaham had found the singing heretic and a fight had taken place. "Okay, let go, old Tang." Lumenfei glanced at Ronald Tang, who was still holding onto his leg, and said coldly, Okay, no problem. From now on, Brother Ming, you are my big brother, and I will listen to you no matter what you say." Although he was a little reluctant, old Tang quickly got up from the ground and bowed to Lumenfei with a smile. "Fingal, he will be left to you to take care of. Something may have been stuffed into his body." Lumenfei pushed old Tang to Fingal. "What was stuffed into me?" "No way." Old Tang was horrified when he heard this, and his hands unconsciously covered his buttocks. "I remember that I haven't been drunk outside during this period. It won't explode, will it?" Finkel took a few steps back with a suspicious look on his face. Lumenfei didn't want to discuss this topic with them. "Also, Brother Finkel, have you thought of a way to untie this dragon binding rope? This dragon binding rope looks like a good alien alchemical creation. He plans to take it back to the Weeping Angels. Maybe the Weeping Angels have the habit of self-sufficient plundering supplies." Seeing good things that can be used, Lumenfei thought about whether he could recycle them. "Captain, you are forcing me. Where do I get this ability?" "The vice principal has to come," Finkel said. "Then you want to take her back to the academy? As long as you want, I will definitely help you bring this beautiful girl back to the Black Moon Pavilion." "Where do you want to touch with your claws, you pervert? Our captain will chop off your claws later." Old Tang suddenly came over, staring blankly at Eri in his arms, and stretched out his palm with an ill-intentioned look. Finger hurriedly took her back a few steps and shouted, "I'm not, I just feel familiar with this chain," Old Tang hurriedly explained. As he said that, he stretched out his palm again in Finger's extremely distrustful eyes, and gently stroked the bronze chain that tightly bound Eri. The dragon binding rope suddenly trembled slightly, emitting a bright green light, and countless strange dragon characters flashed on the surface of the chain. Then it slowly loosened, like a well-behaved little snake, leaving Eri's body and silently falling to the ground. Chapter 110 Alchemist Sergeant. "How did you do that? Are you an alchemist?" Finkel's eyes widened, shocked by Ronald Tang's move. "What is an alchemist?" Old Tang also looked dazed, and asked in confusion. "If you are not an alchemist, then are you Magneto? Otherwise, you can't untie the dragon binding rope." "I don't know what you are talking about, I just feel a little familiar, as if I have seen this kind of thing somewhere before." Old Tang scratched his head. He couldn't understand why he suddenly behaved like this just now, just like an old soldier with amnesia who can still assemble their gun parts when he touches them, and his body has formed an instinct. Could it be that you are the kind of alchemy genius who has lost his memory and looks like an ordinary person, but is actually an orthodox family? I have read your Chinese martial arts novels. Some of the protagonists in the books have been exiled since childhood because of family jealousy or some other reason. Finkel's eyes changed, staring at Old Tang up and down as if he was looking at a rare treasure. Old Tang was stunned by what Finkel said. Speaking of which, he really couldn't remember when he came to the United States. He only remembered that he was adopted by an orphanage to study. After dropping out of high school, he lived in a poor area in Brooklyn. Not long after, he became a bounty hunter and started to take jobs to make money. However, judging from his physique when he went to the tomb as a hunter, he felt that he was more like a tomb robber family than an alchemy family. "Captain, this may be a talent in alchemy. Why don't we take the initiative to recruit him into Castle Academy?" Finkel gently put Uzachi in the corner and trotted to Lumenfei, who was holding a bronze chain and carefully examining it. Lumenfei raised his head and stared at Ronald Tang for a long time. Then he said, No. You are losing talent, Captain. I mean, he wants to join the Weeping Angels, not Castle Academy," Lumenfei said. "Is there any difference?" Finkel was puzzled at first, then suddenly realized. "Captain, are you planning to rebel in the future?" Lumenfei glanced at Finkel coldly, with a bad look. "You have a chance to reorganize your words. Independence. Finkel shuddered and quickly changed his words. When I first entered Castle Academy, I only did one thing, that is to eliminate the aliens and heretics that harm humans on this planet. Therefore, I don't mind becoming a knife in the hands of Castle Academy. But unfortunately, the powerful people with alien blood on this planet seem to have plans to become new aliens, and it is not ruled out that the families in power behind Castle Academy. Mingfei said coldly. Although that's what I said, aren't you thinking too far ahead, Captain? Our war with the Dragon Clan is not over yet. Maybe now there is a Dragon King who is awakened and is lurking in human society and preparing for a big move. Finkel wiped his sweat. According to the Emperor's will, this war will eventually win, and the aliens and heretics who intend to harm humans will be completely eliminated. Mingfei said, and walked towards the slightly panicked old Tang. Alchemy genius, he looked up and down at this forgotten netizen. Although he was reluctant to admit it, for now, the strange alchemy of the aliens is indeed more magical and practical than the technology of his hometown, which has just entered the third millennium. The pure moon grey sword in his hand is the best example. Cultivating an alchemist sergeant exclusively for the war group will also be beneficial to the future weapons supply of the war group. Just like the alchemy book that lifts heavy things with ease, without an alchemist it is just a collection, not a treasure of knowledge. It's time to atone for your mistakes. Join our Weeping Angels war group. Mingfei said. Atonement, how much is it a month? Meals and accommodation provided. Old Tang said weakly. The angel netizen in front of him did not give him the right to refuse, and it seems not bad to have a home. Don't worry about that. I won't let the alchemist soldiers of the regiment sleep on the street and starve to death. As long as you are really capable of this position. Finger, you can explain the details to him. Mingfei said. Okay, since you have nodded, there is no problem. Finger happily put his arm around Lao Tang's shoulders. Now we're brothers, please take care of me in the future. Brother, the sudden close contact and address made Lao Tang stunned. Although he didn't know who his biological parents were, there was something that really penetrated his heart from childhood to adulthood. That was loneliness, a very sad loneliness. When he was a child, his classmates called him a freak, and he was isolated and laughed at by a group of children as a friendless nerd. He wanted to find a friend to refute them, but the sad thing was that even small animals were unwilling to be friends with him. He took a sausage to feed the hungry puppy on the street, but the puppy didn't even come up to eat a bite, and shrank in the corner and shivered. This made him feel very inferior. So until now he has few friends. His small apartment is filled with all kinds of miscellaneous things. It seems that he doesn't want his own place to be so empty, as if he is the only one in the world. The only person who can be called a friend is probably Mingming, whom he met online a few months ago. At the time, whenever he was online at night, he would arrange to play a few games of StarCraft to play against each other happily. The two of them had a great time talking. They even agreed that when Mingming graduated from high school and came to the United States to play, Lao Tang would treat him to a ride on Greyhound and eat hot dogs. Then not long after, he seemed to disappear. He didn't reply to messages and didn't go online anymore, as if he had evaporated from the face of the earth. At first he was a little disappointed, but then he was relieved. After all, he had gotten used to the fact that he was lonely and unloved. But he never expected that when they met again, Mingming would actually transform into an angel, holy and noble. But speaking of which, Captain, do you want this brother to enter the academy through formal channels or bring him in secretly? Finkel asked. He goes through formal channels, after all, he has to study alchemy. The other one is brought in secretly, and it is exclusive to our Weeping Angels. Mingfei said. Another one? There are other brothers. Where are they? Finkel looked around and soon noticed the boy who was slumped on the ground not far away with a beautiful face made up. Is he a brother or a sister? He asked his own question. A man. Originally, he should be purified as a heretic, but I think his words are useful to the regiment, so let him stay in the regiment to atone for his sins. It's not impossible to bring him in secretly, at least we have to get the principal's approval, right? I'll talk to Wange, he shouldn't have any objection. Mingfei was not worried about this problem. As soon as he finished speaking, the building under his feet suddenly shook violently. Confirm the identity of the target, the usurping heretic emperor has appeared. Xu Zhang's somewhat hurried words came from the headset. We're from a god's perspective. We don't know what Lu Yongjin knows, and we don't know whether he will know what we know in the future. Of course I know, so please wait and see, brothers who want to know. Chapter 111. Usurper Emperor. Finger also received Shuzaham's message, and his expression became serious and solemn, no longer the casual and frivolous look before. But he did not rush down immediately, but stayed there with gritted teeth, waiting for Lumenfei's orders and arrangements. "Do you need support?" Lumenfei asked. "I was delayed." He looked careless and seemed to have other requests. Shuzaham's words were still hurried, and inhuman roars and screams could be heard at the same time. "I'll let Finger go down to support you." As soon as Lumenfei finished speaking, Finger immediately knocked down the iron door of the safety passage and rushed down the stairs. Although he was not very serious at ordinary times, at the critical moment, he was not swallowed by the hatred buried in his heart. "Received," Shuzaham replied, and then switched to chanting in a high and fast dragon language. Junyan erupted again. The dazzling orange-red fireball instantly shattered the staircase under his feet, along with the swift deadpools. Finally, the violent explosion collapsed the wall of the 38th floor, revealing the red-hot steel bars. Murazame's alchemical field has been activated, and the blade is like red-hot molten iron. Shuzaham talked through one black deadpool after another that jumped up from the gap in the stairs in the boiling heat wave. The usurper heretic emperor stood quietly in front of the collapsed wall, with the mahjong headgear with the 9-road pattern on his face, giving people an incomprehensible weird meaning. The 14 deadpools guarding him were engulfed by Junyan, but he was unscathed. Shuzaham looked a little ugly. Just like before, when the other party was chanting the weird and inexplicable ballad, he rushed down and blasted it cleanly with Junyan. But after Junyan's explosion, the other party was still standing there intact, and even his clothes did not show any signs of being burned. Is that Lumenfei going to take action himself? You are really not simple enough to suppress the call of word spirit. Eternal memory. The Emperor said softly. Shut up, usurper. Shuzaham wanted to rush to the heretic, but he was blocked by the deadpools. These black aliens seemed endless. Looking down from the gap in the stairs, you could see dense black shadows. If the deep staircase was not too narrow to accommodate too many deadpools to attack at the same time, they would have drowned Shuzaham with their numbers. These deadpools reminded Shuzaham of that rainy night, when the main god Odeon rode an 8-legged horse. Surrounding him were these deformed and mutated deadpools, as if they were Valkyries fighting for him. It seems that I can only activate the backup plan to stop my loss, otherwise I will lose money on this transaction. The Emperor still said to himself. Shuzaham's expression was obviously angry, and he could feel that the other party didn't care about what he did at all. You finally showed up, Prince. With a roar and the sound of heavy footsteps, the angry Finger rushed down with the chainsaw sword in his hand. The word spirit. Bronze throne has been opened. His body surface is stained with a layer of obvious blue. His already strong physique is now a whole circle larger. The ferocious muscles are like bronze castings, with a blue luster flashing, giving people a strong metallic texture. A deadpool jumped over Shuzaham and pounced on Finger with a few wall jumps. Its sharp claws wanted to pierce through and dig out his heart. But Finger's bronze palm locked his throat accurately with one hand, and the roaring chainsaw sword followed and twisted the deadpool's chest. He did not stop for a step, bursting out with amazing strength, like a tiger coming down the mountain, and pounced on the Emperor. His strong physique knocked away all the deadpools who attacked him. The Emperor seemed to be a little surprised and tilted his head slightly, as if he was recalling who the other party was. But then he gave up this plan and stretched out his hand and snapped his fingers. Bang! It was as if an invisible heavy hammer hit Finger in midair from the side. He flew backwards and crashed into the group of deadpools downstairs. He snapped his fingers again, and an invisible field was generated. The movements of the group of deadpools suddenly paused in unison. Then their dark golden eyes became blazing and dazzling, and their movements became more ferocious and violent. Finger's bronze-cast sturdy body was instantly swallowed up by the deadpools rushing over. Word spirit. The king's gift. I can't stop you without giving these cannon fodgers a little strength. I don't want my sacred chant to be interrupted by you. This will really spoil my mood, the Emperor said. As soon as he finished speaking, a deafening roar came from the group of deadpools that engulfed Finger's frenzy like ants besieging their prey. A blue little giant came out with blood, and one deadpool after another was twisted off his head or torn in half by his violent power. Fine and tightly packed bronze scales grew from Finger's body, and his two broad palms were gradually becoming claws. The fiery red chainsaw sword looked like a toy compared to his body, which was twice as strong. Second bloodburst. Fingal was once an excellent 11th blood student of Castle Academy, but after the Greenland shadow that buried most of the executive department of Castle Academy, he seemed to have lost his soul and buried his past deeply. Until this moment, when he saw the culprit who might have caused the tragedy that year, Fingal's anger that had been buried for many years completely broke out, just to kill the murderer completely. The Emperor tilted his head and snapped his fingers again. Fingal's advancing dragon body suddenly stopped, and he half knelt on the ground with difficulty, unable to move. Deadpool, who didn't know why, pounced on him, but fell heavily to the ground with a bang, struggling weakly. A huge, unbearable force suppressed Fingal's entire body, and the ground under his feet was cracking and shattering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Word Spirit. Royal power, this is my favorite among the many word spirits I can simulate. No need to conquer with the kingly way, just crush with the strongest power. The Emperor seemed to be laughing, his voice was happy. Finger. Shuzaham took a deep breath, and the sharp knife light cut off the 3 dead waiters who rushed over. While chanting the king's flame, he stepped towards the usurper heretic. This heretic, no, alien. The other party may be a pure-blooded dragon. The Emperor exclaimed softly. Shuzaham himself was not worthy of his attention, but the unknown golden light wrapped around Shuzaham made him feel a little strange. Whatever. He didn't care about the changes in the power and bloodline of these little hybrids, and gently snapped his left hand. Word Spirit. Discipline. Within the influence of the domain of discipline, dragon blood descendants with bloodline lower than the discipline user zone will not be able to use Word Spirit. Junyan was forcibly interrupted, just like the feeling of wanting to sneeze but not being able to, except that the consequences were several times more serious. But Shuzaham's brave steps did not stop because of this. The Mura's aim in his hand, which had not yet cooled down, tore apart the last few dead pools that blocked his way, and the golden light lingering on his body burst into a dazzling light at this moment. Die under the wrath of the Emperor, usurping alien. He roared. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 112 Awakening. The golden light flowing on Shuzaham's body was a power that the Emperor had not expected. That unknown power did not belong to the Dragon Clan, and was not suppressed by the precepts. Instead, it was as if it was stimulated. The golden light suddenly surged after Shuzaham's roar, and the still red blade of Mura's aim also ignited a layer of golden flames. With hatred for false gods, usurpers, and aliens, Shuzaham slashed the first knife at the Emperor. The shining golden light tore through the air, like a storm of golden thunder. Snap. The palm of the Emperor's hand that had just snapped his fingers was split open by a knife. When the blood splashed out, Shuzaham's second knife had already slashed down and cut off the Emperor's arm. The Emperor let out a light exclamation, not knowing whether he was surprised by Shuzaham's burst of power or suspicious of the source of the golden light. In short, this was not within his expectations. Especially after releasing the word Spirit. Bronze Throne, the opponent was still able to hurt him. The golden flame ignored his greatly enhanced body. All the dead pools rushed over like a tide, as if they wanted to protect their master and tear this disrespectful person into pieces. But they failed to hurt Shuzaham at all. The sacred and inviolable light mounted their claws. Shuzaham took advantage of the situation and stabbed out with his third knife. Without swinging the knife again, the sharp blade pierced the Emperor's neck. The golden flame on the Mura's aim sword ignited the Emperor's funny headgear. Usurper. Die. Shuzaham's eyes seemed to be burning with golden flames. He roared loudly, wanting to cut off the Emperor's head thoroughly. Snap. Even though his neck was pierced by Mura's aim, the Emperor still looked calm and unhurried. He snapped his other intact hand. The touch from the blade became soft and intangible. The Emperor's figure gradually blurred and turned into a shadow and disappeared on the spot. The Emperor actually escaped. Coward. Shuzaham was furious, and swung his sword to cut the black smoke that remained on the spot, and the blade drew a series of golden perfect arcs. The Emperor had indeed left, the effects of the 3 words of the King's Gift, King's Power, and Discipline had disappeared. Finger roared, like a beast that had escaped from a prison, tearing the dead pools that were biting him to pieces. Where's the Emperor? Where did he go? Finger's face had a bronze-like visor, and the 2 horns on his forehead protruded slightly. The second blood burst plus the enhancement of the bronze throne made him look like a furious blue monster. He escaped. I failed to kill him in time. I failed the Emperor's gaze. Shuzaham regretted it in his heart. If he could be faster, he might be able to cut off the head of this usurper alien in one breath. It doesn't matter. If you can't kill him this time, you can kill him next time. I've waited for so many years, I don't mind waiting a little longer. Finkel's voice was as dull as thunder, but his emotions calmed down. If you don't control your emotions in this state, it's easy to degenerate into Deadpool. Deadpool, who was strengthened by the word spirit. The king's gift, seemed to have sequelae. His sensitivity was slower than before being strengthened. In front of Shuzaham and Finkel's current state, he was like cattle and sheep waiting to be slaughtered. Ming, Captain, aren't you going down to help? Feeling the constant vibrations coming from below, Lao Tang was a little panicked. He unconsciously approached Captain Mingfei, ready to hug the angel captain's thighs when the building collapsed. The pair of light wings behind the captain should not be just for decoration, right? They should be able to handle it. And someone needs to watch here. It's not clear why the heretic wants this girl. Mingfei opened his eyes and said calmly. Well, she does look pretty. Hey, this pretty girl seems to be awake. Uzajiera's beautiful eyelashes suddenly trembled a few times, and she let out a soft moan, as if she had just escaped from a nightmare. Mingfei also paid more attention to her, not because of her perfect appearance or the silver white hair that reminded him of the battle nun. As Eri woke up, some kind of huge power also revived in her body. The girl opened her eyes, and her pupils flowed with golden lava that seemed to come from ancient times. She raised her palm, and Mingfei could immediately feel a deadly edge gathering around the girl. A powerful hybrid, Mingfei raised his eyebrows and grasped the Jinyu greatsword in his hand. If this girl attacked them, he would not be merciful just because she was a girl. Uzajiera tilted her head, her eyes stayed on Mingfei, and a curious expression appeared on her indifferent face. She seemed to want to say something, but couldn't. She looked around as if she was looking for paper and pen. But then, she noticed the headless bandit's body on the ground. Her expression suddenly became indifferent, and she waved her raised palm. The invisible line representing destruction blew the headless bandit's body into a thick blood mist. Wow, they actually tied up a female Superman. Old Tang was shocked and ran behind Mingfei. Who would have thought that this seemingly harmless girl would have such a terrifying superpower? After a moment, Eri turned her eyes back to Mingfei. She used her fingertips to pick up the blood on the ground and wrote on the wall, JN. The curious look on Eri's pretty face was very cute, but the blood writing still gave people a sense of horror. Mingfei nodded. Although he didn't understand what the characters in the middle meant, he still recognized the first two Chinese characters. Eri's eyes were fixed on the pair of wings of light spread out behind Mingfei. She even walked up curiously and reached out to try to touch the pieces of holy feathers of light. Mingfei did not resist. As the son of St. Les, he was gentle and friendly to everyone except his enemies. The soft and holy golden light dyed Eri's long silver white hair with a light golden color. If there was a photo of Eri in the past, Mingfei would find that her hair used to be a beautiful dark red. The girl touched the wings of light and shrank back as if she had received an electric shock, as if she was testing whether a small animal would bite her. After making sure that the wings would not hurt her, she confidently reached out her hand and merged into the pieces of feathers of light made up of psychic energy. Eri suddenly smiled, although the smile was a little thin, but there was a kind of beauty with blush on her pretty face. She bent down and smeared the blood on her face, then trotted to the wall and wrote, "It's very warm." Mingfei didn't learn much Japanese, so it was difficult for him to communicate with Eri. He looked at Yuan Xin from the side. "Have you come to your senses? If you have, come over and translate." Yuan Xin stood up silently, her eyes a little dull, as if her personality had also died in Mingfei's last memory. Eri then noticed Yuan Xin, her eyes fixed on Yuan Xin's pretty face, and wrote another sentence. BJ_on_blessed you look like my brother. Many people say that, Yuan Xin whispered softly. Boom. As if a dull drum sounded, Lao Tang, Eri and Yuan Xin suddenly shook all over, staggered a few steps on the spot, and their steps were unstable. Boom. Boom. The dull drum sound became clearer and stronger, showing a strong sense of rhythm, and the speed of the sound became more and more violent. It was like the army beating the drums of war on an ancient battlefield. Oh my god. Captain, look there. Old Tang covered his chest, his face pale, and pointed his other hand at Tokyo Bay in the distance outside the window. The sea is approaching here, and the 100-meter-high water wall is advancing while making a thunderous sound. Buildings several stories high are like pebbles on the beach in front of it. Mingfei frowned. It seems that something powerful is awakening. Chapter 113 The White Emperor. In the lobby on the first floor of Genji Heavy Industries, the smoke from the explosion had not yet dissipated, and ambulances were constantly transporting the wounded. The two heads of the three upper families of the Snake 8 families, Tachibana-san and Minamoto Kisei, stood at the gate, both looking very ugly. Tachibana-san used his political connections to prevent the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department from intervening in the affairs of Genji Heavy Industries, and only assisted in blocking the streets around Genji Heavy Industries. This allowed them to secretly clean up the bodies of the dead pools on the 3rd and 4th floors. What a miscalculation! I didn't expect that they would choose such a perfect time. Tachibana-san sighed. They actually dared to attack Genji Heavy Industries directly. In addition to those mercenaries and the mixed blood forces to which Groyo belongs, did the fierce ghosts also participate in this operation? Minamoto Kisei stared at the bodies that were sent out, none of which were intact, and said in a deep voice, "They will definitely not miss any opportunity to bite the main family." Tachibana-san said. As soon as he finished speaking, a crow's urgent cry came from the intercom. "Young master. Head of the family. All floors above the 30th floor have disappeared." "Speak clearly, what does disappeared mean?" Tachibana-san shouted coldly. "The 30th floor is not the strategic department we are familiar with now. It looks like an office building that has been abandoned for several years. The floors above are the same, bastard. Something is attacking us." Fierce gunshots and painful screams came from the other side of the intercom. General Chishin's expression changed, and he immediately rushed into the building with the longsword in the red sheath in his hand, as fast as a black cheetah. Tachibana-san followed behind. He looked like a 60-year-old man, but he was able to keep a certain distance from General Chishin without being dragged down directly. The two rushed up to the 30th floor in one breath. This was not a difficult task for the top hybrids, but Tachibana-san's speed was a little slower. When he caught up, General Chishin had already killed all the black monsters that attacked the Executive Bureau team on the 30th floor. The alchemical ancient sword with the inscription Spider Mountain's Evil Purgatory Night Ambush dripped black blood from the beautiful arc of that blade. General Chishin frowned and stared at the monsters he killed. "Deadpool," he said in a deep voice, "but they are different from the ones on the lower floors. Did they put them in here too?" "No, they were already here." Tachibana-san said, "They are the ancestors of the Snake 8 clan." "Ancestors?" General Chishin was stunned. "If I'm not mistaken, the part of the building from this floor to the top floor is already in the night food field. That's hellish cage." Harry, General Chishin thought of error first. After inheriting the identity of the head of the general family, he read the most secret history and murals of the family and knew where the bloodline of the Snake 8 clan originated from. "Young master. Dr. Miyamoto Sword from the Tokyo Meteorological Bureau has sent an urgent report." Sakura Yabuki's urgent words came from the intercom, but there was no time for Yuan Zishin to ask. The climate in the Tokyo area has changed dramatically and seriously. The volcanic belt along the coast of Tokyo has erupted, and the first wave of tsunamis is approaching the coast of Tokyo at a speed of 70 kilometers per hour. Yuan Zishin strode across the room that seemed to have been abandoned for several years and was full of decay. He saw the heavy lead-colored rain clouds rolling outside the window. A few minutes before entering the building, the weather was still sunny and cloudy. The existence sleeping in the night food plane is about to wake up. The White Emperor. The White Emperor. If my brother knew this title, he would definitely say with a cold face, "Another transgressive alien that needs to be thoroughly purified." Luming stretched his face and pretended to speak in Mingfei's tone. "In the night food plane, time always remains between dusk and night. Although the city form is a mirror image of the city in the real world, the distortion and fusion are not stable. Are you here to stop me on behalf of Mingfei?" The Emperor turned his head and looked at Luming, who was still wearing Jiasu's mahjong mask. "This is your home court now, I'm just a spectator." Luming shrugged, "And the body is now under the full control of my angel brother. No one in this world can corrupt his sheltered and tough soul." But, Luming narrowed his eyes and glanced at the charred and unhealed wound on the Emperor's neck. "You know a lot. The word spirit. Yoni is not a word spirit that ordinary people can release." The Emperor didn't say much. He ignored Luming, turned his head and looked around the distorted city of Niblung. "What are you greedily craving for?" First you wanted to awaken the memory of the King of Bronze and Fire, and now you want to awaken the White Emperor? Luminx's voice became cold. Even if you have a high position in the Elder Council, your strength is not enough to play tricks on the king. Those who play with fire will eventually burn themselves. The Emperor was unmoved and seemed to ignore Luminx. He stood on the edge of the roof and sang. The ancient and melodious ballads echoed in this empty and dead city. World Spirit. Eternal Memory. It is not on the World Spirit periodic table customized by the hybrids, because it is one of the special World Spirits that the hybrids cannot steal from their bloodliner. This World Spirit can forcibly awaken the sleeping dragons who are not in the cocoon state, as well as the dragons who have just awakened from this state and are confused, and it is not only effective for ordinary dragons, but also for the first generation, the noble first generation kings who control supreme authority, and even for the White Emperor. Regarding the history of the White King, you also need A-level permissions to read it in the Library of Castle Academy. Here's the Zero generation produced by the split of the Black King. Here's the strongest existence besides the Black King and one of the two emperors who can truly rule the world. Here's the master of spiritual elements and can copy the abilities of other monarchs. In the IC fragments that records the history of the Dragon Clan, the White King launched the largest rebellion in the history of the Dragon Clan. 1/3 of the Dragon Clan became rebels and even won over the ancient humans who were slaves at the time, promising to give them freedom after defeating the Black King. Brother seems to hate rebels the most. Maybe he will be a little heavier when he strikes. When Luminx thought of this, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Although this rebellion brought disaster to the Black King, it ended with the victory of the Black King. The Black King destroyed the White King, nailed him to the sky-supporting copper pillar and threw him into the depths of the roaring ice sea. 2 cracks as long as 100 kilometers were scratched on the frozen sea surface. The cracks crisscrossed and formed a huge cross. Under the command of the Black King, the ocean currents from the 2 poles changed direction and converged to the ice sea, turning the sea into the coldest sea in the world. It was the place of execution set up for rebels. The sea was frozen for 6 epochs and never saw the sun. During those 6 epochs, the royal family on the Eurasian continent looked to the north and saw the sky-supporting copper pillar rising from the ice sea. There were always black clouds above the place of execution, and the roaring blizzards constantly reinforced the ice cage. After 6 epochs of freezing, the power of the White King finally exhausted, so the Black King sank the White King and the copper pillar into the volcano on the seabed, turning her into ashes and swallowing her, taking back the power he had previously given to the White King. Who would have thought that in the 6 epochs of ice, a human named Azanaja sneaked into the Forbidden Land, made a contract with the rebels and came to ancient Japan. Among them, the bearer of the Holy Grail, the first generation White King parasite Azanaja is sleeping in this Nibelungen. Feeling the trembling of the building under his feet, Luminx raised his head and saw countless thick dark clouds rolling in. The sunset on the horizon of Tokyo Bay in the distance has fallen, and the entire Nibelungen has fallen into a dark, as if the end of the world is coming. The strong wind is like a knife, and the rain is pouring down. Are you really going to watch it like this? The Emperor turned his head and said. He took off Chiasu's hood, revealing a handsome face. The rain wet his golden long hair, and his eyes were like gas lamps in the darkness. I said, I'm just a spectator. Even if I want to take action, I can't beat the complete version of Yamato no Orokai. Luminx spread his hands. He carries the Holy Grail, the seed of the White King's resurrection, the place of spiritual authority. Even if he only has 1/10 of the power of the White King, I can't deal with him. Then my guess is right. It seems that the power is no longer under your control. The Emperor said coldly. I have to say that you have a very stupid illusion. Luminx chuckled, and the rain fell along his delicate little face. I still control the power, but the power in Mingfei is far more powerful than mine. Boom. Boom. The heartbeat became more and more intense, and all the dead pools of Nibelungen knelt down and surrendered at the awakening of the great existence. In a certain area of Shinjuku district, buildings continued to collapse and sink, and the entire Nibelungen was trembling. The 4 elements had completely collapsed in chaos, and the terrifying waves of 100 meters high overturned Tokyo Bay with thunderous thunder. The god is waking up, and he is angry because his sleep has been disturbed, because it is not the time for him to wake up yet. Although you were stupid, I have to admit that your backup plan may have succeeded by accident. Luminx raised the corner of his mouth, staring at the Emperor in the rain with a sarcastic smile. So you were just a despicable thief. I never care about the honorific name, only power is the foundation. The Emperor looked calm, and while he was speaking, a violent roar resounded through the world. You have a really big appetite. You actually want to steal the authority of the White King. You'll let the confused Bronze and Fire Kings come here, just to make my brother fight with the awakened His Highness Norton. When both are defeated, you'll steal his or my authority, right? This is my power, so why shouldn't I make good use of it? The Emperor disagreed. Do you have to rush back to tell him everything? No, because your information is too behind the times. Lumen still had a mocking smile on his face. My brother will fanatically use the will of that Emperor to completely purify your dragons that intend to destroy all mankind. Whether it is this White Emperor or you, the usurper and despicable thief who usurps the name of Emperor, you are all within his purification range. Chapter 114. Raging Blade. A pair of blazing golden eyes lit up from the smoke of the destruction of Shinjuku, followed by the second pair, the third pair, until the eighth pair. 8 pairs of brilliant golden eyes lit up in the dim Nibelungen, like several reassuring beacons of light in the dark and stormy night. But it was not until the overwhelming rain washed away the smoke and dust, revealing the huge body, that people realized that it was actually an ugly and ferocious anglerfish in the deep sea. 8 pairs of eyes, 8 heads. The Yamato no Orokai in Japanese mythology. The white filaments covered the entire destroyed Shinjuku district like a sticky and dense spider web, but it was more like mold heavier than a spider web, and it could even penetrate concrete and steel. This filament is also highly corrosive. The steel that is contaminated by it becomes as loose as a sponge. The seemingly wholly white covering is actually a feeding ground for death. It looks like an extra low snowfield. The second wave of the tide has swept to the Shinjuku area of the night food plain, but hundreds of thousands of tons of seawater have not submerged this low snowy land. Everything in the night food plain obeys the orders of Yamato no Orokai, and the seawater has brought food to the hungry gods who have just awakened, Deadpool and Shikamaru. These dead flesh have certain genes of the White King's bloodline in their bodies. Izanagi, the zero-generation parasite who has just awakened after sleeping for a long time, needs to supplement nutrition. Just like the Izanama who is called the White Priest in Japan, the White Emperor only planted the seeds of revival with human greed as the soil, and reproduced his own bloodline just to preserve his own genes. When she revives, it will be the end of all the White King's bloodline. She will devour all her descendants to restore her power on that day. But this is far from enough. Yamato no Orokai, who carries the Holy Grail, is the spirit of the White King. He needs to hunt more genetic power to replenish and restore his power. In the night food plain that has completely fallen into darkness, Yamato no Orokai shows his magnificent body. It was a huge white beast, nearly 100 meters tall, with 8 ferocious heads on 8 curved dragon necks, and 8 pairs of golden eyes like huge candles flickering in the dark rainy night. Pale scales covered his entire body, and his strong and agile dragon body was like a majestic mountain. A pair of huge silver white flesh wings stretched slightly, as if they could not be fully unfolded due to insufficient strength. He roared in anger and dissatisfaction, and the visible sound waves swept away the wind and rain in Shinjuku district, and several areas including the central area and Shibuya district were affected. The glass of the building shattered instantly, and the entire night food plain trembled under the wrath of the god. If it happened in the real world, Tokyo would be on the verge of destruction. The White Emperor has the heart of the Dragon King, but his body is not yet complete. This situation should be resolved by asking to get or the Strike Freedom Gundam, right? But I can make a light stick for my brother, but he probably doesn't need it. Lumen stared at the huge dragon shadow in the distance, but spoke playfully. The day will be the day when the descendants of the White King rule the world. The White Emperor will sit on a sedan chair carried by hundreds of people. Her footsteps will cross the ocean and Europe, and go to the red plateau at the end of the earth. Servants clad in bronze and gold will raise long banners for her that cover the sky. The blood of the enemies will splash onto those long banners that soar into the clouds, and it will take 3 full days for them to flow into the land. Wherever she goes, she will build cities with the bones of her enemies as their foundations, and all the cities will be connected into an indestructible giant wall. From then on, everything south of the giant wall will be her imperial capital, and all the conquered tribes will be exiled to the north of the giant wall, where they can only wail in the ice and snow, praying that the sun will rise earlier to give them a little warmth. The Emperor whispered, "This is the day of victory described in his prophecy when he will rule the entire world." "Hectares, my brother will be furious if he hears it," Lumen said with a smile. "But now all the descendants of the White King in Japan will be used as blood food for his nourishment." The Emperor ignored Lumen's words and continued. "Then you arranged for the 2 most delicious ones to come in." Lumen smiled and looked at the Genji Heavy Industries building in another place. In this dark night food field, only there were some bright white lights. For Yamato no Orokai, it was not just the lights that attracted him. In his 8 pairs of flickering pupils, there were 2 groups of bright bloodlights emitting a tempting breath in the building. He moved his huge body and rushed towards the Genji Heavy Industries building in the central area. The 8 dragon necks like long snakes swung, and the heads rushed forward one after another, as if they wanted to eat fresh blood food first. Ari and Genji Hitos were both in extreme fear. The complete White King spirit's suppression of the White King's descendants is devastating, even greater than the blood suppression of ordinary hybrids meeting pure-blooded dragons. After betraying the Black King, he used the Word Spirit Oracle on all his descendants. This is the only Word Spirit that can restrain the Word Spirit Emperor. Just like the Word Spirit Forbidden Enlightenment released by the Black King to all hybrids, whether it is the slaves who were transformed by dragon blood voluntarily given by dragons, or the rebellious species who stole it by dirty means, they will be restricted by the Word Spirit Forbidden Enlightenment and can only master and inherit one Word Spirit. This is a power that is almost like a curse that is passed down forever with the bloodliner. Although Fingal was not affected as seriously as Eri and Genji, he also breathed heavily under the vast and invisible dragon power, and had a palpitation from the depths of his bloodliner. "Deputy Captain, why are you okay?" Fingal said very uncomfortably. "I will not succumb to the alien bloodliner. I only fight for humans and the Emperor," Shuzaham said calmly, standing upright with his head held high. "In other words, you are not loyal enough to the Emperor." After clearing the aliens that were blocking them, the 2 of them returned to the 45th floor. "Do you feel uncomfortable?" "Why do I suddenly feel very angry?" Old Tang said weakly while hiding behind Mingfei. "Could it be that you're Superman, and I'm the incarnation of light who subconsciously wants to fight monsters? But I don't have a magic stick and I can't become Tiger." "You find a way to dissolve the alchemical matrix and let this building return to the real world as soon as possible. I'll go stop that alien," Mingfei said coldly, his eyes fixed on the giant monster outside the window whose figure was gradually becoming clearer. He stepped forward, and the Jinyu greatsword in his hand unfolded a complete combat form. The flowing light quickly materialized, and the sword body widened and extended, turning into an amazing 2-handed giant sword. Unlike the previous gorgeous jade-like green and green sword body, under the blessing of the Emperor, the sword body light became as bright as gold, and the blazing golden flames were still burning. "He is still some distance away from us. We should be able to get out of here if we hurry," Shuzaham said. Judging from the pressure on Fingal and the others, the alien is likely to be a first-generation dragon. Judging from its size, it must be stronger than the false god on the viaduct. We must be prepared for both situations. What if we need to intercept and block the alien's power like your father? Mingfei walked to the window without looking back, facing the storm outside like a knife. "I understand." Shuzaham said no more. "Captain, what should I do if I have a headache when you leave?" Old Tang said weakly. "Pray to the Emperor will protect his loyal warriors." "Brother really set off," Mingfei said with a smile. The Emperor was silent. Although it was somewhat inconsistent with the backup plan, at least the battle was about to begin as he wished. A shining golden meteor streaked across the dark rainy night. It was Mingfei who was sprinting towards Yamato no Orokai at high speed. The pair of golden wings behind him ejected blazing energy, dragging a long flame tail in the sky. He could now freely control the light wings manifested by the Emperor's psychic blessing, but now he didn't have time to learn to fly freely with wings like the legendary saints, so he had to try to sprint and fly in the form of the jet power jump pack of the regiment's raider squad. But the effect was unexpectedly good, and the extreme speed allowed him to quickly approach the huge white alien. Witnessing the golden figure that was attacking at high speed, Yamato no Orokai's 8 pairs of golden eyes actually emitted a light between fierceness and fear. But then, the dignity of being a noble emperor did not allow him to have such emotions. The 3rd head on the left of Yamato no Orokai began to roar rhythmically, representing the will of death and destruction sweeping over. All the falling raindrops turned into deadly blades of judgment, and their speed was magnified hundreds of times as they swarmed towards Mingfei. Word Spirit. Judgment. The ultimate killing word spirit that was once released by the head of the Uzuchi family, Uzuchi Eri, was released by the creator Yamato no Orokai. He issued a direct death order to Mingfei, enforcing it on behalf of the will of the White Emperor. By the will of the Emperor. Mingfei's roar covered the roar of the alien. With the blessing of the Emperor's psychic energy, the psychic power of the prophecy system was fully activated. The attack of judgment had been predicted, and the road to effective damage had been paved. His figure turned into an extreme golden light. His body was only 1% of Yamato no Urokai's, but his edge was sharper than any sword in the world. The rain of judgment against Lumenfei was avoided, or dried up by the golden holy flame, and the death will of the alien failed to hurt the Emperor's angel of death. The Yamato no Urokai was severely injured by Lumenfei's extremely fast edge. The dark night food field seemed to be cut by a golden sword, and the shining blade light even overshadowed the thunder in the sky. Blood gushed up like a fountain. The first confrontation between Lumenfei and the Yamato no Urokai ended in the blink of an eye. The blasphemous alien White King was beheaded by Lumenfei. Chapter 115. The power of the White King. In the distant past, Izanaga sneaked into the execution ground at the White King and obtained the Holy Grail and holy remains that carried the spirit and body. He learned that he could not destroy the gift of the White King, so he established Takamagahara and Yoma no Shokuhara. The former would be the extremely prosperous kingdom of God, and the latter would be the dark prison of the night. He slept in it with the Holy Grail of the White King's spirit. Now, the White Emperor lives in this huge and ferocious dragon body. Izanaga's spirit has been completely shattered. However, the White Emperor, who once ruled the world with the Black Empire in ancient times, shed noble divine blood after waking up again. After cutting off one of the heads, the sharp sword that seemed to be able to cut through everything in the world still tore a shocking wound on the majestic body of the White King like a mountain with its amazing power. The Angel of Death launched the trial with the will of the great Emperor, who was the only one to radiate light in the distant dark future. The Jinyu Great Sword tore through the hard pale scales on the White King's body, and every drop of the divine blood, which was a perfect baptism for the hybrids, flowed. The White King had stopped moving forward to wheat. His 7 long necks, curved like snakes, turned around and stared at Lumenfei, who was on his body. His 7 pairs of golden pupils, which had spanned countless years like the gas lamps of a ship, were filled with raging rage. He had put away his contempt for humans. The tiny human in front of him was two-eared. He didn't know if it was the boiling blood in his body, or the golden energy that blessed him like the golden holy clothes. He actually felt a little fear. This is impossible. The only person who could make him feel a little fear was the Black Emperor, but even so, he had thrown a rebellious spear at that Emperor. While his mind was thinking like the vast ocean, a loud bang like a bell broke out from the mouth of the second head on his right side. The pure dragon script and the ultimate chanting. At the moment when the syllables burst, the domain of the word spirit and the king's power had been formed. The terrible force that could crush a third-generation species alive restricted Lumenfei's body in place, and the explosion of the bones under the pressure and friction between the huge force was clearly audible. The third hideous head on the left side of the White King had already rushed towards Lumenfei quickly, and the bloody mouth like the abyss opened as if it wanted to tear this human who hurt the gods into meat paste with the poisonous dragon teeth and the terrifying bite force that could crush everything in the world. "I'm the sword of the Emperor." Lumenfei gritted his teeth and raised his head unyieldingly, using the Emperor's wrath as a counterattack against the alien. The holy and brilliant wings of light behind him stretched forward, and the wingtip that previously served as the jet of the jet power jump pack once again bloomed with shining holy flames. Boom! The deafening explosion sounded like thunder. 2 golden flames exploded on the dragon head that attacked him. The blood mixed with pale scales exploded. The ferocious dragon head roared in pain and leaned back to knock down an office building. According to the will of the Emperor, Lumenfei roared, and the bright golden light surrounding his body surged again. The gravity pressure exerted by the alien power was instantly reduced. Lumenfei seized the opportunity to drag the sword and charge. The sacred sword body of the Jinyu Great Sword tore through piece after piece of tough scales, just like dragging the gap left by the plowing ground. Blood gushed out like a spring. He wanted to chop off a few more alien heads. The word spirit power from the alien was still a considerable threat to him. The winds behind him were also constantly pouring the Emperor's sacred anger at the White King, repelling several heads in succession. The early warning field of the prophecy psychic energy has been raised to the limit, and a sense of crisis is coming from behind. The most threatening thing about the body of Yamato no Urokai is not only the 8 dragon heads, but also the sword that is unparalleled in Japanese mythology and can cut the world apart. Aim no Murakumo. No one knew what Aim no Murakumo was until it appeared. Yamato no Urokai has 3 thick and long tails. Except for the one on the left, the sharp bones at the end of the other 2 tails shine with deadly sharpness. The elegant arc light is like the moment when a peerless swordsman shows his sharpness for 10 years, as if 2 lightning bolts have crossed the sky and attacked in a cross-blocking manner, trying to strangle Lumenfei. Ding! The visible sound waves buzzed and vibrated. Mingfei turned around and blocked the two bone swords that could feel the sharp cutting feeling just by looking at the surface of the skin with the Jinyu great sword and the light wings behind him. The muscles of his arms bulged, and the surging blue veins were ferocious and eye-catching. At the same time, a head has completed the release of the word spirit. Word spirit. Junyan, simulated release completed. Even though that body of the Dragon King was not complete, the spirit and soul of the White King was intact and resided in this somewhat deformed body. As the pain caused by Mingfei to him became more and more severe, the memories and knowledge from the ancient heritage were constantly awakened under their stimulation. He controlled the spirit, a mysterious and sacred element that was superior to the four elements. This was also the power of his ability to simulate the first generation of the King's source words of other systems. Under each of the pale dragon scales of the White King, a fiery red light shone, as if magma was surging, and the domain of the King's flame had opened. But unlike Shu Zihan, every time he released the King's flame, it would cause a shocking and violent explosion. The effect of the King's flame's domain was displayed on the dragon body of the White King. After a moment, the entire dragon of the White King was on fire. That was a real burning. The White King himself seemed to have turned into an erupting volcano. With the extreme high heat, the surrounding buildings that had not been destroyed were melting like magma visible to the naked eye, and a fiery red sun lit up in this dim night food source. The King's use of the word spirit far exceeds the imagination of the hybrids. Mingfei endured the furnace-like scorching. Even with the few rays of holy light bestowed by the Emperor to protect him, the surface of his tough body also showed signs of scorching. He knew that this was the alien trying to drive him away from its body. The other party seemed unwilling to fight with him in close combat. In terms of size, Mingfei was as small as an ant compared to the huge dragon body of the White King. It could even be called an honor to make the other party feel so terrified. But Mingfei didn't think so. Even so, the other party had to pay a corresponding price. Bang! Mingfei let go of the stalemate with the two Tianku-sanages, leaned over to avoid Tianku-sanages slash and charged forward. After a few steps, the wings behind him ejected surging spiritual energy to boost him, and he almost flew at a high speed close to the surface of the White King's body. In the blink of an eye, Mingfei approached the third dragon head on the left side of the White King, which had just barely raised its head. He took a quick step, leaned forward, and swung his sword. The dancing blade was like a swift lightning. Under the high temperature that was like being in the center of a volcano, Mingfei wielded the pure moon-grey sword to demonstrate the ancient, elegant but deadly swordsmanship inherited from the holy blood angels. The hot and boiling red blood sprayed like magma. While Mingfei adjusted his wings and sprinted vertically into the sky, the White King's neck, which had just been raised, had lost control and fell to the ground with a boom. Another dragon head was cut off. Traitor! The 6 remaining heads of the White King screamed in unison in the language of the Dragon Clan. He was furious. The human had hurt him again, causing him to lose precious divine blood. In the depths of the Dragon King's heart that ordinary people cannot know, the White King even had a trace of doubt about humans and hybrid human species. During the tens of millions of years that he was sleeping, what kind of development had this humble species achieved? Was this unusual human the most powerful existence of this species today, awakening him and wanting to kill him? But then, the Honorable White Emperor raised this ridiculous idea. He is the White King. The Honorable Emperor who can sit on an equal footing with the Black King. Even though there is only an imperfect body now, the White Emperor from countless years ago is living in his body. His only 6 remaining heads began to chant the word spirit together, and the vast syllables burst as if chanting a song of creation. Word spirit. Canlay dominates, simulates release. The extremely high-risk word spirit that belongs only to the lineage of the Sky and Wind King, all the thunder in the world will be controlled by the releaser of the word spirit. The dark rainy night suddenly became as bright as day, as if the sun was rising. In fact, it was the rolling thunder that filled the sky above the rain clouds, gathered here under the will of the White King. Even if the White King did not actively remove or destroy the alchemical matrix that maintained the night food, the elements between the world were almost squeezed by the White King, and they inevitably entered a weak state and began to have a certain connection with the real world. Boom boom boom, the surging and exploding thunder poured down from the sky, and the night food seemed to have a doomsday rain. Lineal lightning, strip lightning, sheet lightning, rocket lightning, ball lightning. This is a shocking spectacle, but people in it probably don't have the mind to appreciate it. The violent lightning smashed all the buildings on the ground, and the flames burned fiercely. But more thunders, under the will of the White King, rushed towards the meteor with a long golden tail flame. These terrifying natural forces with a speed of 15,000 meters per second and a temperature of 17,000 degrees continuously hit Mingfei. The shining thunder shattered under the holy flames that protected his body and gradually merged into the wings behind him. Indistinctly, a vague and illusory golden ring appeared behind Mingfei's head. Seeing that the high-risk word spirit that could destroy a human city controlled by Canley could not destroy the tiny but dazzling human, the White King angrily released the word spirit of the second head. Word spirit. Death Scythe, simulated release completed. A huge pale yellow sickle condensed in mid-air, as if it was held by the invisible death god. The thunder that dyed the world silver did not change the ancient pale yellow of the giant sickle. This is an extremely high-risk word spirit that originated from the lineage of the King of the Earth and the Mountain. It is recorded in the word spirit periodic table designated by the hybrids. The killing sickle itself is strengthened with the bloodliner of the word spirit releaser. As a supreme bloodliner, the White King can undoubtedly strengthen the death scythe to an incredible degree. The invisible death holding the sickle locked onto the eye of the golden meteor. I had a cold plus headache plus stomachache during the day, but fortunately the nucleic acid test results came out normal today. This chapter was written while listening to the BGM code of the monster hunting show Iran. Chapter 116. The Army of the Old Ones. The complete heart and spirit of the White King, except for the imperfect dragon body, is basically equivalent to the White Emperor reappearing in the world, right? How is it? After witnessing the power of the real Emperor of the Dragon Clan, do you feel inferior? Lumen smiled, with a hint of sarcasm in his words. He and the Emperor stood quietly in the night food plain, where endless thunder struck like the end of the world, looking at the sickle in the distance that seemed to be able to tear the world apart. The Emperor did not speak. Although his body trembled slightly under the power of the terrifying word spirit, the look on his face was full of fanaticism and greed. The golden light shone as if a golden sun rose, and a golden giant blade as huge as the death scythe appeared in the world. The collision of the two was enough to destroy everything in the world. It was as if the glass mirror reflecting the world was broken. A huge shattering sound rang out, and the pale yellow giant sickle was chopped into pieces by the giant sword. The surging air waves and energy flames swept across the entire Nibelungen. Word spirit. Death Scythe was destroyed. The authority of the King of the Earth and Mountains can lock the eye of all things. As long as the eye is destroyed, no matter how hard or flexible the object itself is, it will be destroyed. The White King simulated and copied this part of the power very well, but it still failed. The halo behind Mingfei's head, like a golden sun, showed obvious golden edges, bringing him new power, the holy word psychic energy from the great Emperor. This is a direct manifestation of the Emperor's will. It erupted in Mingfei's sincere heart that was loyal to the Emperor and fought for the mankind. The unparalleled psychic power gathered and condensed, turning into a sharp sword to judge the alien. This is the Emperor's judgment. His roar was like thunder, and the wings behind him sprayed dazzling streams of light. The speed broke through the sound barrier, and he drove the unmatched giant sword to kill the White King. Word spirit. Return to dust, simulated release. Invalid. The energy that condensed to form the terrifying giant sword ignored the forced decomposition effect of the word spirit. Gaiken. It was an inorganic substance that did not belong to this world. The power of the dragon race that could command the world could not make it collapse on its own. The flickering golden eyes on the 6 remaining ferocious heads of the White King once again revealed a look between fear and terror. It was impossible for his huge body to dodge. The sword of judgment was coming. As the Supreme White Emperor, he could only take it head-on. Word spirit. Akala, simulated release. The 4th head of the White King chanted loudly, and the word spirit named Akala was released. The Jungian form that had previously turned itself into a furnace-like high temperature dissipated, and the still hot scales were stained with a layer of dark luster. The huge dragon body became like black gold in the blink of an eye, reflecting a bright luster under the attacking golden sword. The 2 swords named Dame Kun on his back were dragged by his giant tail and swung in front of him, heading straight for the golden giant sword. At the same time, the other heads of the White King were chanting other powerful words, vowing to crush and destroy this disrespectful person. But then, the chanting of the words was interrupted, replaced by a roar of pain and anger that was enough to shatter the eardrums. The 2 sharpened thick bones failed to stop the judgment of the Emperor's will. Aimkun was cut off, and the tough dragon body strengthened by the Akala seemed as weak as thin paper. The psychic giant sword blasted through the White King's front body with the Emperor's anger. One of the heads was split into two by the surging psychic power and was worn away into a ball of blood mist. What followed was the blood gushing out from the hideous wound, as hot as magma. The awakened god suffered the most serious trauma in history. The psychic giant sword dissipated, turning into a raging golden holy flame that burnt his body. This time, the White King really burned. You humble slave who is overstepping your bounds. How dare you blaspheme and harm the noble White Holy Emperor? Unforgivable. The White King, who was burned by the sacred golden flame, roared to the sky. The one who responded to him was Mingfei, who crashed down like a golden meteor. The Jinyu great sword in his hand first slashed across the left eye of the first head on the right side of the alien, and then pierced through the right eye. The bright red blood covered the shining golden pupils of the alien. Mingfei bathed in the blood of the White King. This was the dragon blood of the most noble king in the history of the dragon race. In the stories passed down by the hybrids, it has the effect of making the hybrids evolve, just like the hero Siegfried in the Song of the Nibelungs, who was reborn after bathing in dragon blood and became invulnerable to swords and guns. Even if there was only one drop, it was enough to make those hybrid nobles crazy. But to Mingfei, it was just dirty alien blood. The injured head of the White King swung wildly, trying to shake off the hateful bug, but Mingfei stood still, and the holy wings behind him turned their wing openings, gushing energy, and aimed at the ferocious dragon head whose eyes were blinded. Boom! The surging golden holy flame instantly pierced through the alien's wailing head, and the blooming flame tail burned his flesh and blood. The body of the White King once again lost a head that he could use. Mingfei felt a sense of exhaustion for no reason, and his body suddenly leaned back somewhat weakly, falling from the blown-up dragon head. After a moment, he regrouped his strength, and the energy gushing from his wings drove his body to fly again, landing steadily on the ground. "What's going on?" Mingfei panted, stood with his sword, and whispered to himself. He was a little puzzled by his previous state. If Shuzham or anyone else were here, they would be horrified to find that Mingfei's eye sockets, which were emitting blazing golden light, were now sunken, and his lips were becoming charred black, as if they were being burned by the blazing golden flame in his body. The halo behind his head stopped at the moment before it took shape, and the power to construct this halo of the sun weakened. The Emperor's will is not only powerful and boundless, but also as heavy as a mountain. His soul accepts the Emperor's gaze, but the power that this body can withstand seems to have reached its limit. Unless this body is burned and transformed into a complete sun's body under the Emperor's reshaping, but for some reason, Mingfei could feel that the Great All did not do so. "I will dedicate everything to you, the great Emperor of mankind. I will fulfill your will and eliminate all aliens and heretics on this planet that harm humanity. I'm absolutely loyal to you, and I'm absolutely pious to mankind." Mingfei immediately knelt on one knee to pray. He was not afraid that he would lose the Emperor's blessing and power. Even without the Emperor's gift, he would rush to the alien without hesitation until he died in battle. This was the instinct of being a weak prostitute. He was afraid that his impure body mixed with alien blood would cause the Emperor to doubt his loyalty. Of course, this was Mingfei's wishful thinking, and no one could guess what the Great All was thinking. After the solemn and concise prayer, Mingfei's eyes, which were gushing with golden anger, swept towards the huge alien in the distance. In this case, then offer the head and blood of this alien to the great Emperor on the golden throne to prove his loyalty. During the time he was praying, the White King moved his huge and severely injured body away from him. The White King, who had ruled the world for thousands of years, actually retreated. With his only 4 remaining heads, he chanted the common complex dragon text together, and the forbidden word spirit that had been silent for tens of millions of years returned to the world again. Word spirit. Return to the source. The time pointer that recorded the existence of the White King was briefly turned back, and time seemed to flow backwards. The severely injured body of the 8-headed snake of the White King was returning to its previous uninjured state. The 2 heads that were cut off along with the neck turned into white mist and disappeared on the spot. Instead, 4 intact dragon heads reappeared on the body of the White King. The 2 bones of Aimku Mekamo that were chopped off by the holy word psychic giant sword at the tail were also restored to their original state. The 8 heads of the White King roared in unison. "It has recovered, then I will kill it again." Mingfei responded with cold eyes, holding the Jinyu sword in his hand tightly, without too many strange emotions because of the recovery of the White King. The living spirit in the blade drank the blood of the Dragon King while bathing in the holy light, happily responding to the Master's desire to kill. "I will lead the army of the old days and dominate the whole world. In the meantime, you, the arrogant and blasphemous slave, must be hung high on the long banner. I want to see you shed your last drop of blood." Your skull will become the stone of my throne and suppress you forever. The White King roared furiously and chanted the ultimate taboo word spirit that belongs to the power that he controls. Ancient authority. Mirage. Only the word spirit of the exclusive authority of the Dragon King can be named ancient authority. The melodious word spirit chanting like the ancient horn sound of the ancient battlefield sounded, as if calling the ancient army of the old days to return to the world from the land of the underworld. The unknown realm of the word spirit spread out rapidly the moment the syllables were sung, and the world returned to darkness. The pale and thick mist enveloped the Nibelungen, the night food plain. The only unyielding light was Mingfei. He broke through the blockade of the mist, and the wings behind him sprayed shining energy streams and hovered in the air. After a moment, the white mist dissipated, and what came into Mingfei's eyes was a pale army that could not be seen at a glance. Word spirit. Illusion, one of the forbidden word spirits that belonged to the White King, was also the strongest word spirit that could be released under the current restrictions of his dragon body. Under the supreme spiritual authority of the White King, anything that exists in reality will be materialized in this realm as an illusion and reappear, and have the same combat power and power as in reality. He awakened the dragon army that once followed him to rebel against the Black Emperor's throne. There were only a few records about the Great Rebellion War. People only knew that the White King instigated 1/3 of the pure-blooded dragons to rebel, but no one knew how big this 1/3 army was. And now, Mingfei witnessed this seemingly endless pale army with his own eyes. They spread to the rear with the White King at the head. There were dragons showing their fierce and ferocious dragon bodies, and generals in human form wearing crowns and armor sitting high on bronze alchemical chariots. Countless mixed-blood human slaves and mixed-blood war beasts were fully armed, wearing ferocious bronze masks, holding alchemical war spears, and neatly lined up behind the noble dragons. There was also a large army in the dark sky, dragons soaring with huge wings, unknown humanoid aliens with membrane wings on their backs, and metal dragon boats floating in the air by alchemical means. The White King no longer cared about the price of releasing this kind of word spirit. He wanted to lead his army of the old days to plant white long banners in every corner of the world and reconquer the world. Before that, the White King's 8 pairs of flickering golden knives swept to the angel of death in the sky, which was emitting golden light all over his body. First kill this slave who defied fate and dye a white banner with a striking scarlet. Chapter 117 The Wrath of Mankind, 4K. Stop filming here, run. Finger cursed, and slapped the almost obsessed Miyamoto Shio without any hesitation. Finger, Shuzahan, Lao Tang and his group dragged Yuan's in, because Mingfei said he was the property of the Weeping Angels, so they took him around the building to remove the black pyramid that dragged the building into the night food plain. Uzajiria followed them at a trot, because the blood pressure brought by the White King's revival made her a little afraid. Fortunately, the locations of the pyramids were very clear, and Lao Tang, like Jiabao seeing Lindayu, was inexplicably familiar with I have seen this sister before, and he removed the alchemical restrictions of the pyramids one after another. Shuzaham didn't need to chop with a knife, so they were very fast and were now preparing to remove the last pyramid on the roof. During this period, the uprising of the alien and the death angels outside the building was also going on. The roar of the angels, the roar of the beasts, the roar of thunder, all made them tremble with fear. Then the thunder came on, and Shuzaham and his companions could see a ferocious white beast with 8 heads and a golden meteor with a long flaming tail fighting fiercely. From the angry roar of the other side, it seemed that their angel leader was in the upper hand in the fight with the ferocious dragon. This undoubtedly gave them a shot in the arm. Miyamoto Shia, the head of the Miyamoto family of the Snake 8 families, broke the plot in horror movies that those who walked alone would die suddenly. Not only was he fine, he ran to the roof and took the camera to shoot fiercely. You don't understand. Every second of this is a precious treasure for the hybrids. That one is the White King. The great existence who once sat on an equal footing with the Black Emperor. Miyamoto Shio excitedly raised the camera and shouted loudly in the cold wind that was whistling like a blade, and his glasses had been blown away. Our leader is also there. If you want to shoot, you must get the consent of our regiment. You have to pay the copyright fee. Finger also said loudly. While they were chatting, Old Tang was only one step away from dismantling the last black pyramid. Prepare to leave Nibelungen. Shuzaham said loudly, trying to make his voice audible in the howling wind. Stay a little longer. Just a little longer. Miyamoto Shikshin requested. Shuzaham ignored him and let Old Tang dismantle the last black pyramid. As the door of the alchemical matrix was dismantled, an invisible white mist enveloped part of the building. After a moment, the white mist dissipated, and the only building in the night food plain that still had a few lights on completely returned to darkness. This world will turn into the most tragic battlefield. Mingfei stared at the army of aliens, without any fear, and his eyes surging with golden light still locked on the White King. As long as the largest alien is killed, these summoned aliens should also be dismantled, right? He prayed to the Emperor in his heart, but not to ask the Great Will to grant more power. This is not what a weaker champion warrior should do. When facing a stronger enemy, he will only choose to rely on himself and his comrades, rather than seeking the help of the Great Will. Just when the angel was about to face the alien army alone, someone pressed the pause button for the world. Brother, you are not fighting alone. The world was stained with a layer of grey, and time fell into an absolute state of stillness. The wind stopped blowing, and the alien flapping its wings in the sky seemed to be frozen, staying in the sky motionless. A boy with a delicate face and a small suit appeared beside Mingfei and said with a faint smile, "I don't need the help and gifts of the devil." Mingfei said coldly. Seeing that he saved the woman who was killed by the heretic in the hospital last time, he did not immediately turn around and slash at Mingfei with a sword. "I just came here to talk to you, brother." Mingfei put his hands in the pockets of his small suit and walked in the air as if he were walking on flat ground. In the distance, the 8 pairs of blazing golden eyes of the White King stared at the boy who suddenly appeared. "Brother, you are really too powerful." You forced him to use the 2 words of return to the origin and delusion in succession. Except for the missing Black King, there is no creature in this world that can force him to this point. Mingfei said with a smile. Mingfei stared at him coldly. "Okay, let me get to the point, brother." Mingfei sighed. Word spirit. Illusion. This is the only forbidden word spirit that the White King can release at present. It can make anything that exists in reality and has come into contact with it, no matter when and where. As long as it has existed, it can be materialized as an illusion and reappear in the world, and it has the same compact power and power as the reality. What you are seeing now is the army that the White King used to rebel and almost brought a catastrophe to the Black King. Go on. The release of this word spirit field is irreversible and irrevocable, even if the releaser of the word spirit itself is killed. To release this word spirit, all summoned illusions must be killed. For now, this word spirit can be called a world-destroying level. Even the army of the old ones that the Black King is worried about, not to mention those weak humans outside, it will not take more than half a month at the latest for the White King to plant his flag from Asia to Europe, and the world map will return to the White Emperor. Then, Mingfei smiled mysteriously. But, this word spirit has a biggest disadvantage for you, brother. This word spirit field is bidirectional. That is to say, brother, you can also materialize things that have existed. As long as your spirit can be maintained, and they really exist. After all, Mobile Suit Gundam and Ultramantiga definitely don't count. Finally, you need to make sure they can defeat the White King's army of the past. He said softly, but in this world, the only one who can defeat them is the Black King. Mingfei already understood what Mingfei meant, and his eyes fell back on the White King. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. No matter where they are, as long as I have come into contact with them. Yes, brother, no matter at what time, what place, or what universe. The smile on Mingfei's face was meaningful, just like the idiot who tried to kill you in your dream. Mingfei took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Mingfei looked at the White King glaring at him in that distance. His smile became playful, and then his figure became nothingness and slowly disappeared. Time resumed its flow. Killed him. The White King roared in anger, commanding his army of the old days to attack the angel shining with golden light. All the dragons hovering in the sky, or various unknown aliens, or the mighty dragon alchemical creations, all charged towards Mingfei under the will of the White King. The same was true on the ground. The army composed of mixed races charged under the command of the tall and completely dragon-like general, spreading like a tide. But not long after the charge, they suddenly stopped the attack strangely. The dark clouds pressed down on the city and the city was about to be destroyed, and the armor shone with golden scales towards the sun. The sacred golden light tore through the dense black clouds, and an angel wearing golden armor flapped his pure white wings and fell in the golden light. His figure was as perfect as a sculpture completed by countless masters of ancient Greece with great effort. He wore a sacred and solemn golden mask on his face, and a shining iron halo rose in the middle of the power backpack behind him. He held a holy sword wrapped in silver arcs in his right hand and a golden holy chalice dripping with blood in his left hand. Holy Lino. Except for the time Mingfei witnessed before his death on the Defluent satellite, Holy Lino almost only existed in legends and history. It can be said that he was a saint exclusive to the Blood Angels, who would save the Blood Angels and their descendants at the most critical moment. Looking at the figure bathed in golden light, Lumenfei's heart was beating wildly and he swallowed hard. Then he took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Lumens was right. Perhaps he had never come into contact with a force that could rival this alien army in this world. But he had come into contact with it in other worlds. And there are many more. The Astartes in bright yellow power armor gradually took shape in the golden light. They were majestic and unyielding, holding bolters and chains words. The red heart on the shoulder armor that shed tears in the black and white grid shone brightly under the golden light. The weeks who saved him, trained him, and fought side by side for 100 years to protect mankind all materialized. Lumenfei knew more than 1,000 people who are still alive or saw them die in battle, including Cortos Harkins, who died in his hands after saving him, and finally inherited his name and glory. For St. Jareth. For St. Jarno. For those we cherish. After materializing, the Weeks warriors witnessed the existence of the angel in the sky, and shouted loudly as they rushed into the army of alien hybrids, and the roaring bolts and roaring chains words harvested the lives of the aliens. Lumenfei was so excited that tears welled up in his eyes. He wanted to rush down and fight side by side with the illusions of his blood brothers. No, it's not enough. The alien army must be destroyed with absolute combat power. The White King was stunned. Even he, who inherited infinite knowledge in his mind, couldn't figure out where the angel with a terrifying aura and those humans who were as tall as his servants came from. He never thought that there would be creatures that could materialize an army in the field of illusion to fight against his own army of the past. But then, he calmed down his uneasy mood. The other party could materialize an army, so what? His own army of the past almost collapsed. Even the Black King. Another Astartes chapter materialized. They were slightly taller than the average Astartes. They wore dark green power armor with flame patterns and were equipped with various sophisticated weapons. The salamander totem on their shoulder armor was simple and extraordinary. The leading Astartes warrior did not wear a helmet, revealing his dark, resolute and majestic face. He held a power hammer in his hand. His power armor was decorated with a pale grey hideous lizard skull, and his dark yellow scaly cloak fluttered behind him. The Astartes founding group that had given them a batch of weapons and equipment before the Atonement expedition and had fought side by side with them, the Salamanders. Support the Brothers of the Weepers. Sons of the Fire Dragon, charge. After seeing the Weeps fighting the aliens, there was no need to say more. The current head of the Salamanders immediately led the Salamanders Astartes, Terminators and the powerful chariot torrent like a heavy hammer, ruthlessly blasting a large hole in the alien army. Not enough. Not enough. Another group of Astartes materialized. Their power armor was black and yellow, with two golden crossed sickles on their black shoulder plates. The Emperor's Sight, descendants of the 13th Primarch Robut Guilliman, and a descendant of the Ultramarines. They had fought alongside the Lamenters in the fight against the Tyranids, and were a respectable warrior brotherhood. Needless to say, after witnessing the Lamenters fighting the Salamanders, they immediately joined the fight against the Xenos. The next warrior force to materialize was not the Astartes, but a group of women wearing small, specially made black power armor, with the fleur-de-lis and the Imperial Church's emblem prominently displayed. They were beautiful and heroic, with white hair like snow, and holding various weapons and equipment. They had fought side by side in the operation to cleanse the Necrons, the battle sisters of the Order of the Valiant Heart. Their loyalty to the Emperor was almost fanatical. Although there was a hint of hesitation, under the leadership of the Grand Sister, this group of fighting sisters also quickly joined the battle against the aliens. Although the hybrids and dragon servants are powerful and extraordinary, the Astartes are stronger and more united than them. After being superhumanly strengthened and blessed with power armor, the warriors have not suffered any casualties so far, and the attacks of the aliens have not even scratched their power armor. Some strange spiritual power caused some obstacles to the Astartes, but they were quickly killed by the think tanks of the regiment with psychic power. Under the roar of the grenade gun, the battle was one-sided. The Astartes pushed back the offensive of the alien army with amazing efficiency, and the war tanks of the Salamanders opened fire and destroyed one after another of the alien alchemical chariots. Finally, the White King could not sit still. He could not bear that his army, which almost overthrew the Black King, was unable to do anything to the group of humans, and he directed the two first-generation species in the army to go out. Although they are not as powerful as the four first-generation kings who hold power, they are at least their direct descendants. Two majestic and ferocious white dragons flapped their wings, and their huge bodies soared into the air. At this moment, Mingfei manifested new power and joined the battlefield. Two huge halos appeared, outlining the huge and majestic physiques of the two steel behemoths from bottom to top, and the terrifying weapons of various calibers equipped on them. The god's machine of the Mechanicus, the warlord-class titan, appeared. They are as huge as mobile war fortresses, the embodiment of the will of the god of all machines, and the incarnation of the Messiah. When the titans come, it means that mankind will pour out surging anger on all enemies. A total of 7k today. Thanks to the yellow-clothed bald cape man for his 10,000 reward support. There are also rewards, subscriptions, and monthly ticket support from other fighting brothers. P.S. The White King that Luke Yonjin wants to kill is based on the serialized version that Jiangnan didn't finish writing, can't continue writing, that is Anajih who has obtained the flesh and blood and spirit of the White King is the real White King. I'm going to take a shower, I haven't eaten yet. Chapter 118 Push. Even though that titans are the most powerful fighting force of the human empire, the embodiment of the god machine and the Messiah. But no one wants to see the titans appear on the battlefield they are on. Once this war beast appears, it means that the situation of the war has reached the worst point. The same is true for the Arstatives. On the battlefield dominated by titans, the Arstatives are no different from ordinary mortal soldiers. However, for a war group with few soldiers like the Weepers, it is generally not their turn to appear on the Titan battlefield. Mingfei was fortunate to witness these two god machines on the Forge World of Mokor. After receiving the news that the Forge World was attacked by the Green Skin Frenzy, the Weepers rushed to support. Because of the instability of subspace navigation, the war was already in its final stages when Mingfei led the team to arrive. He happened to witness the Mechanicus dispatching two Orc-class titans to destroy the large unit of the Green Skin Orcs, the greater ancient garbage. The amazing power of the god machine to destroy the world left a deep impression on Mingfei. The Mechanicus's worth is unfathomable. Mingfei believes that even if the Green Skins open bigger and are ancient giant garbage and the biggest and are ancient giant garbage, the followers of Own Messiah can also open the same level of god's machinery. Maybe they can also witness the Empire-class titans that only have a few words in legends and history. But in short, the huge mental consumption of the two Orc-class titans' fire tenacity and fire oath almost made Mingfei faint. Therefore, the Titan Guard consists of only a few knight-maches of the Mechanicus vassals and 1,000 Mechanicus guardians wearing yellow Forge World robes. The War Dog-class titans are really unable to materialize. The moment they appeared on the battlefield, the belligerent and violent machine souls of the two gods machines immediately locked onto the flying dragon aliens, and issued a loud war roar at the joy of hunting. Driven by the enthusiasm of the machine soul, the captain and several high-ranking co-pilots driving the Titan were unwilling and unable to suppress the furious emotions of the war engine. No matter what the situation was, all they had to do was obey the will of the Titan machine soul and join the chorus of killing aliens. The fire oath moved his legs, as heavy as the hammer of a crane and as powerful as a tower. Every step he took would cause the earth to tremble. In order to maintain the stability of the huge and heavy body, the god machine was equipped with a gyroscope and a gravity stabilizer. Even so, when using the huge and terrifying weapons they were equipped with, they also needed to adjust their standing posture to a shooting posture to deal with the recoil of the huge weapons. The models of the two Orc-class titans were both the ancient Mars type, and the main weapons equipped on their arms were the Gatling explosion macro cannon and the deflagration incineration cannon. The moment it entered the shooting form, the machine soul of the fire oath could no longer hold back and launched an attack. The 6-barreled Gatling explosion macro cannon sprayed out truck-sized shells at an astonishingly rapid rate of fire. The fire of destruction tore one of the first-generation dragons flying towards the Arstatives line into pieces almost at the first sight. Dragon blood flew, and a heavy rain of blood fell, but it soon disappeared in mid-air. Not only the bodies and strength of the dragons were manifested in the world, but also their pride and arrogance. They thought that these divine machines were just ridiculous toys made by humble slaves, but now they paid the price with blood. Another first-generation species of the White King bloodline roared, chanting the word spirit in pure dragon language, and the word spirit. Black Flame Prison was released. The word spirit field unfolded, and the black flames like those from hell gathered into a roaring sun, roaring and crashing into the machine that killed his blood relative. But a translucent egg-shell-shaped shield surrounding the huge body of the fire oath blocked the attack of the black flame. It was a void shield formed by 6 sets of void shield generators installed on the body of the fire oath, which could intercept and invalidate most long-range attacks before hitting the body. Just as the White King first generation was stunned, the fire toughness counterattacked on behalf of its steel brother. accompanied by a thunderous explosion and the amazing recoil that caused its body to tremble unnaturally. The volcanic cannon equipped on its left arm opened fire, and a thick and bright white laser beam gushed out, directly obliterating and evaporating the arrogant alien. The god's machine is a symbol of the supreme power of mankind. Its origin can even be traced back to the golden age of human domination of the galaxy in the 20th millennium. It can be said that since these two gods' machines were materialized by Mingfei, who almost exhausted his mental power, the outcome of this war has been doomed. The Dragon Clan's old army will be completely destroyed by the future anger of mankind. The Arstaters and Battle Sisters who were charging on the battlefield consciously moved away from the location of the god machine and continued to trample on the line of the alien army. They added up to more than 2,000 people, equivalent to the warriors of two Arstaters regiments fighting together. This was rare in that war-torn galaxy, because the vast territory of the Empire was not proportional to the number of Arstaters regiments. Therefore, many times when heretical rebellions or alien invasions occurred in the Imperial world, they were pacified by the loyal and brave Immortal Star Army. Only when the situation was the worst, perhaps a Superman team composed of Arstaters warriors would come to put out the fire. Mingfei panted violently, regained his spirit, and looked at the White King in the distance, whose 8 heads were full of various expressions such as astonishment, confusion, and anger. Now the only alien that could pose a slight threat to them was this alien. In Mingfei's positioning, the White King was equivalent to a powerful alien psychic who controlled the power of strange words. However, with St. Lino and God's machine, this alien who once ruled the world and was known as the White Emperor had no choice but to be destroyed. Mingfei's eyes turned to the group of brothers in bright yellow power armor who were fiercely charging in the battle line below. He took a deep breath and tried to make the last mental embodiment. An Arstaters warrior wearing fine power armor and a halo cast on the power backpack appeared. He was holding a chainsaw sword and a bolt pistol, and his handsome and resolute face was exposed on the cold battlefield. After the embodiment, the weaker warrior immediately charged forward and joined his brothers in the battle with the alien. That was the place where his soul was placed in that world. Cortos Harkins, who had fought for more than 100 years and became the champion warrior of the chapter. Although Mingfei can now manifest a set of power armor, he cannot transform his body into the superhuman body that can exert the maximum power of the power armor. Then, Mingfei controlled the wings behind him, swooped down with a sword, and fought side by side with the illusions of his blood brothers as Mingfei. The army of dragon aliens was instantly torn open by the golden meteor, setting off a wave of alien blood. The existence of this unidentified figure who looked like the Emperor's son still greatly encouraged the Arstaters of the 3 regiments, which represented that the Emperor's will was with them. But the most fanatical ones were the group of fighting sisters. Although they had not undergone superhuman transformation like the Arstaters, they were still brave. After Mingfei descended with the warm light of the Emperor, the fighting sisters became more fanatical, shouting for the Emperor's son and killing the aliens crazily, proving their loyalty with blood. The Wind Angel fighting sisters carrying steel wing-shaped jetpacks took off into the air, holding explosive arrows and double guns to approach Mingfei, and fought side by side with this Emperor's saint. This made Mingfei a little uncomfortable. On the other side, Titan and its guards were also advancing their battle line. After killing 2 first-generation dragons in seconds, the warlike spirits of Fire Fortitude and Fire Oath immediately locked onto the 8-headed alien prey that was even bigger than them. The White King immediately felt a strong sense of crisis. The 8 heads chanted the word spirits together. Word spirits. Kingship released. Unimaginable gravity pressed down on the metal bodies of the 2 god machines. Although they were not affected too much as the incarnations of the Messiah, the speed of moving became heavy and slow. The gyroscopes and gravity stabilizers were running at full power. Word spirits. God's army released. This was the White King's enhanced word spirit. From pure-blooded dragons to mixed-blood slaves, his remaining army of the old days was strengthened in all aspects. The speed of the Arstaters' push slowed down slightly. And the Titan front was still pushing forward. Although the Nightmares of the Mechanicus vassal seemed smaller than the Titans, their firepower and bravery should not be underestimated. Some were equipped with giant chainsaw swords used by knights, which killed one tall alien dragon man after another. The 2 metal behemoths moved their feet with difficulty. The multi-link laser cannons and Vulcan super-heavy bombs equipped on their shoulders and various small anti-aircraft firepower kept tearing apart the aliens trying to break through from the air. The pure-blooded dragons classified as the 2nd generation and 3rd generation species in the dragon bloodline were constantly blasted into blood mist and fell from the sky wailing. A dazzling figure accompanied by golden light fell. After swinging his sword to kill 3 huge aliens that were entangled with him, the swift and brave St. Lino silently swung his sword and flew towards the White King. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 119. The Fall of the White King. As for St. Lino, most of the Arstaters of the Blood Angels still think that he is just a legend. Even those who know him have different guesses about his origins. Some believe that St. Lino is the embodiment of the nobility and ideals in the soul of the Primarch St. Les, while others believe that he is the sole collection of the sacrificed descendants of the Holy Blood, but at least Mingfei had witnessed the appearance of this angel with his own eyes. He flapped his pure wings behind him, holding a war sword wrapped in silver arcs, and flew towards the White King with sacred golden light. The White King once again felt a panic emotion. It was a mixture of pure fear, and chill. The last time he had this emotion was when he faced the supreme power displayed by the Black Emperor. He was unwilling to sit and wait for death. The remaining 7 heads chanted and released the word spirit together, trying to shoot down the angel with wings flying at high speed. His powerful former generals were also summoned to his front and attacked St. Lino together. The high-pitched dragon word sang in unison, and the remaining elements in the Night Food origin were gathered almost squeezed, and even the elements that were free from the real world were summoned and pulled in from the cracks. Word spirit. King's flame. Word spirit. Rhine. Word spirit. Time erasure. Word spirit. Vacuum prison. Word spirit. Return to dust. Word spirit. Raging vortex. Word spirit. Judgment. Various extremely high-risk word spirits bombarded St. Lino one after another. Each word spirit had astonishing power, which could kill ordinary hybrids in seconds, tear apart tank companies, and flatten an entire area, but they were all ineffective against St. Lino. Various colors of light flashed on St. Lino's golden mask, and various elemental forces silently disintegrated 50 meters in front of St. Lino. The word spirits chanting of the dragons sounded more like a dirge sung to themselves in futile resistance. In the distance, the 2 10-meter-tall divine machines let out a deafening steel roar. The gravity field of the kingship was reduced as the White King was distracted, and these 2 Titan machines were no weaker than the Holy Lino. The tenacity of fire and the oath of fire took another step, with huge metal parts rubbing against each other and making a chilling metal roar, until the generals in front of the White King were within the best range. Then, full fire. The multi-barreled lasers and Vulcan super-heavy grenade guns equipped on the external shoulder armor roared first. Their firing procedures were faster than the main guns on the arms. The dazzling laser beams illuminated the dark night food field of the White King, piercing and killing one dragon alien after another. This is the god of all machines, and also the highest embodiment of human anger. When those hybrids who rebelled against the dragon race still believed in the so-called truth that only the power of the dragon race could kill the dragon race, the divine machine used the roaring Gatling explosion macro cannon to tear through the battle line of the White King's old army, which was composed entirely of pure-blooded dragons. St. Lino approached the White King, silently swung the blade in his hand, and drew a simple cross. The 5 heads of the White King roared in pain and hideousness. A huge cross wound appeared behind him. With the dragon blood rushing to the sky like a fountain, 3 dragon heads fell together with the slender dragon neck. His tough and indestructible white scales were as fragile as paper, and the sword in the angel's hand was like a red-hot knife cutting soft butter. The proud White King would not give in to being killed. His 2 giant tails carrying the clouds of clouds angrily stacked at the angel in the sky. St. Lino completely ignored Tenkamokumo, and swung the angel sword in his hand again, cutting off the 3 giant tails of the White King along with the back half of his body. The White King smelled the smell of death, pure death. He was awakened by force, and it was impossible for him to make a cocoon when he was already incomplete. In the ancient rebellion war, the negligence of the Black King and the public execution gave him the opportunity to make a deal with humans and find a chance to revive after countless years. But, the White King could only feel the pure breath of destruction from this human army. What's worse is that he is powerless to resist. He has paid the greatest price to release the ancient power, illusion and summon his own army of the past. He is unable to simulate the release of the ancient power of other first-generation monarchs, such as Hulong and Gaiqiu, which can drag that damned human to be buried with the destruction word spirit. Boom. The 2 volcano cannons equipped with fire tenacity and fire oath opened fire. The scorching aura of destruction enveloped the night food plane, and two thick and bright white laser beams pierced through the White King's incomplete body one after another. Although it is unknown how powerful the legendary alien called the Black King was to destroy the White King, the power of the two divine machines may not be inferior to him. The full-powered anger of the Messiah incarnation wiped out most of the body of the Honorable White Emperor. The Honorable White Emperor was left with only two heads connected to a piece of flesh, which was extremely miserable. Even the roar of unwillingness became so weak. His army of the old days tried its best to protect their honorable master, but the knight armor of the Titan Guard and the Mechanicus Skitera were pursuing the victory and ruthlessly tearing the aliens' line apart. Compared with the Titan line, even the Astartes who were invincible in the alien line with their superhuman bodies seemed very ordinary, but their bravery was not diminished at all. Lumenfei's eyes were filled with jealousy. The Titan's power was too amazing. No matter how powerful this alien was, it would be reduced to ashes before the wrath of the God's machine. It would be great if the weaks had won. It doesn't need to be a warlord, even a warhound would be fine. However, the Astartes Codex does not allow the Astartes to have units like Titans. There are only a few ground vehicles left in the chapter. After the Atonement expedition is over, I'll see if I can find one, Lumenfei thought silently in his heart, but then he reacted and his face looked a little gloomy. He is no longer the champion warrior of the Weepers, and the Blood Brothers in front of him are just the embodiment of the illusions of the past. But he quickly adjusted his mentality, and the angle of the wings behind him twisted downward, and the shining psychic energy gushed out. Lumenfei rushed into the sky, intending to rush to the White King to ensure that this alien was completely dead. But there was a hint of something strange that caught his attention. It was a pale human hand stretched out from the ruins. He decisively gave up going to the White King's location, grasped the sword in his hand, adjusted the wings behind him and rushed to that location. In the state of enhanced psychic power, everything on the ground was clearly visible in Lumenfei's eyes. It was impossible for ordinary humans to exist in this place at this time. The golden meteor made a sound that broke through the sound barrier. Lumenfei instantly approached the position of the palm that stretched out from the ruins. His eyes with golden flames locked on the human wearing a Mahjong headgear, and he was reciting the mysterious Dragon text. Usurper. There is no doubt that this person is definitely the usurper heretic who claims to be the Emperor. You dare to stay here? Do you really think that the Emperor's wrath will not purify you, a heretic? Lumenfei roared, and swooped down to the ruins like a golden sword. But after witnessing the battle between Lumenfei and the White King, the Emperor seemed to be well prepared. After noticing that Lumenfei had discovered him, he immediately stopped chanting the dragon script, decisively snapped his fingers, activated the unknown word spirit, and his figure quickly turned into a black shadow and disappeared. Don't even think about running. Lumenfei's eyes widened with anger, and an arrow that seemed to be made of gold turned into a golden light and pierced through the Emperor's body, which had not yet completely annihilated. The arrow of faith in the holy word spiritual energy could now be released without hindrance with the support of the Emperor's holy light. Ah! The Emperor cried out in pain. His word spirit was interrupted, and his body had not yet completely annihilated. The arrow of faith pierced through his shoulder and went straight to his heart. Lumenfei's speed was too fast. With a bang, he landed on the ground with a bang, and the Jinyu sword in his hand split most of the Emperor's body diagonally. Blood mixed with internal organs gushed out. The scene was extremely bloody, but Lumenfei would not have any mercy on the heretic. The sword blade burning with blazing golden flames cut off the head of the usurper heretic with precise and gorgeous sword dance. Pah! Until this moment, the Emperor's finger snapping had just started. You planned all this, right? The kidnapping attack, tracking the building into Nibelungen, awakening the sleeping alien, and the heretic called Wang Jiang. Lumenfei looked cold, and swung his sword to cut off the palm of the snapping finger, strangling it into a thick blood mist. To be honest, it was a pity to kill him like this. He needed valuable information now. But if he didn't kill him directly, who would know what kind of weird escape and life-saving methods these heretics would have? The Wind Angel team of the Battle Sisters arrived. They were heroic and determined, and they were determined to protect the Emperor's saint. On the other side, the White Emperor who once ruled the earth also fell. The main weapon, the explosive burning cannon, installed on the right arm of the fire toughness, spewed out light and energy like the sun, burning all the heads of the aliens. The machine spirit of the fire oath seemed a little dissatisfied that his steel brother had taken away his final killing power, but under the captain's strong appeasement, he had to vent his anger on the alien army that had not been completely destroyed and was crazy because of the death of his master. After deleting and revising, I finally wrote it out. Chapter 120 Fragments. Humans don't know that their world has just walked on the edge of destruction, nor do they know that the great creatures that once ruled the world all must talk through the curtain and return to the world again. But Tokyo, Japan, has truly experienced the end of the world, with earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, and heavy rains. In the satellite cloud display, dense rain clouds can be seen gathering above the Tokyo metropolitan area, while on the ground, a dark vortex of rain clouds surrounds Tokyo, mixed with lightning of astonishing frequency, as if the apostle of the world is about to appear. Tokyo's major airports have fallen into a state of overcrowding and chaos. Countless people want to escape from this city in doomsday. Even the senior leaders of the Tokyo metropolitan government are ready to take His Majesty the Emperor with them, but suddenly, the torrential rain stopped, the tide began to recede, the cumulonimbus clouds that covered the sky dispersed, and the cold but bright winter sun fell on Tokyo, where half of the area was soaked in water. The people who are still panicking and crowded at the airport a second ago stopped and stared blankly at the blue sky and white clouds outside the floor-to-ceiling windows that still had traces of water. It was as if the world had played a joke on them. Even in the Nibelungen, the awakening of the White King still brought a catastrophe to Tokyo in the real world. He could stir up the magma tide under the ground with a breath, and the 4 islands of Japan could sink to the bottom of the sea with the flap of his wings. And with the fall of the White King, the strange phenomena of heaven and earth caused by him also disappeared. Of course, the citizens of Tokyo would not know all this. Except for the heads of the 8 families of Snakey, the mixed bloods in the world would not know that the White Emperor, who once dominated the world with the Black Emperor, had been awakened and then fell from his throne of power. Currently, there is only one person who knows the outcome of this battlefield. The old army that the White King is proud of may be able to flatten this world, but the human army that blocked him can travel across the galaxy. 20 minutes after his own fall, most of his old army was quickly destroyed by the Titan of God. With the last mixed blood servant being killed by a bomb and his head smashed, the unknown war in the night food field came to an end. Word Spirit. Illusion. With the demise of the releaser and the army of illusions, the effect of the domain still remains, but it is only a matter of time before it disappears. According to normal war etiquette, Mingfei should express his gratitude to the god machine of Messiah, but because of the problem of mental power consumption, he still cancelled the existence of 2 Warlord-class Titans and the Titan gods. If it were placed in that universe, this rude behavior would definitely be punished by all the followers of the Mechanicus. The Astartes of the 3 chapters of the Lamenters, Salamanders, and Emperor's sides loudly praised the victory bestowed on them by the Emperor and the Primarch, and they were in high spirits fighting side by side with other fighting brothers. Especially the Lamenters, the angel figure with outstretched wings in the sky made them shout the name of Holy Lino. Mingfei didn't pay attention to it during the battle just now. Until the battle was over, he realized that these brothers looked so real, with flesh and blood and their own emotions. Mingfei even had an illusion that the people standing in front of him were actually the brothers fighting in the dark and cold universe. He wanted to go up and talk to them, but he was surrounded by a group of ecstatic white-haired nuns. The iris marks on the bright red or black nun power armor shone brightly. They were so beautiful, and their pretty faces stared at him with fiery eyes. Now that Mingfei could think freely, he couldn't help but suspect that the people who selected them might have some impure motives. However, with the nuns' enthusiasm, even if he opened his mouth to praise their beauty, they would not feel honored. They would probably disfigure themselves immediately to prove that their dedication to the Emperor was the most important thing. Thank you for your contribution to this battle. The Emperor's sacred glory will always bless his loyal warriors. Out of etiquette, Mingfei still expressed his gratitude to the combat nuns. Fighting for the Emperor is our duty, Saint. The high-ranking nun in the lead wore bright red power armor, and her amber eyes stared at Mingfei. Under her leadership, all the combat nuns saluted him. Mingfei didn't know how to face them. He was an Astartes warrior, and his knowledge of the Emperor's saints only existed in stories. In order to avoid these troubles, after confessing his guilt to these daughters of the Emperor in his heart, Mingfei released the spiritual power that maintained their illusions. The figures of the battle sisters were shrouded in a hazy golden halo, and then slowly disappeared. He breathed a sigh of relief, looked at the Astartes not far away, and walked over quickly. The Emperor's saint is here. The Astartes had different reactions. Because of St. Lino, the Lamenters were the first to salute the Emperor's saint to show respect, followed by the Emperor's scythes. Only the Salamanders, as a founding group, were not too enthusiastic. Under the leadership of the chapter master, the Astartes wearing dark green power armor saluted Mingfei out of respect for the Emperor's will. Even if Lumenfei had thousands of words in his heart that he wanted to share with his blood brothers, he couldn't say them at this time. His current identity is Lumenfei, and his current state is very much like a saint blessed by the Emperor. Although the soul and mentality are the same, the identity is completely different. It is very difficult to integrate into their group as before. The glory of the Emperor will always bless his loyal warriors. Lumenfei took a deep breath, put away the loss and peace in his heart, and spoke to the illusion of his brothers. The spiritual power that materialized the Emperor's scythe and the salamanders was released. Surrounded by a warm and hazy golden halo, their figures slowly disappeared. Finally, there were the Weepers. Even the Weepers in their heyday did not have as many warriors gathered here. Many sacrificed, disappeared, and died in the Badab War. Astates were materialized by Lumenfei, even including himself, who had become a champion warrior in the future. The sacred halo surrounded this regiment that had been entangled in the curse of doom since its establishment. But the warriors of the Weeps will not give up their original intentions because of the cruelty of fate, even if they're excluded by the Empire, misunderstood or even suspected by other warbans, and encounter various terrible heretics and aliens one after another. They did not embrace the thirst for blood, nor did they fall into chaos. Instead, they have been protecting humans in their own way. In simple terms, the Weeps will not fail to help others or watch others die just because they're unhappy or even unfortunate. May your souls gain eternal life with St. Les under the glory of the Golden Throne, brothers. Lumenfei said softly, crossing his hands in front of his chest, and performing the final Sky Eagle salute to the real illusion of the Weepers, completely releasing the spiritual power that maintains their existence. Then, he felt the gaze of his eyes, looked up, and saw the sacred St. Lena flapping his wings and slowly flying down, and the light spots behind him turned into wisps of white feathers fluttering. Lumenfei's heartbeat suddenly accelerated again, and he hurriedly corrected his posture. For the descendants of the Blood Angels, St. Lena was a legendary existence second only to Saints, the father of the Primate. It is my honor to meet you, Lord St. Leno. If I have disturbed your incarnation to participate in the battle here, please forgive me if I have offended you. Lumenfei knelt on one knee and performed the ancient supreme etiquette of the Blood Angels. St. Leno landed in front of him, staring at Lumenfei from behind that perfect golden mask of St. was with his emotionless eyes, silent. The dazzling silver arc on the holy sword that killed the White King disappeared, and in his other hand he held a golden holy grail with a bright blood drop mark. Lumenfei recognized this holy grail. In the Blood Angels, it was called the Blood-Red Holy Grail, which preserved the holy blood of saints, and only the most loyal and reliable holy blood priests could possess it. Before St. Charles returned, the 9th Legion was a terrifying existence on the battlefield, dark and cruel, known as the battlefield ghoul. Until the return of the Primate, he knelt down to the 9th Legion, which was excluded and escaped, and declared his complete loyalty to the Legion. He shed blood in the subsequent battles and won their respect and loyalty. After understanding the bloodthirsty and hungry nature of his own Legion warriors, St. Charles did not despair because the Legion might degenerate into a monster that only knew how to kill in the future. Instead, he taught them to replace their desire for slaughter and bloodshed with honor and pride. The battlefield ghoul baptism was sublimated into the noble holy blood angel. Even for the warriors who were deeply trapped in the killing, St. Charles did not give up, but used his Primate's blood to let them rest and calm down. After a long silence, Lumenfei tried to slowly release the mental power that maintained St. Leno. However, the other party did not disappear, and still stayed in place and stared at Lumenfei. This unimaginable change made Lumenfei's eyes widen and his heart beat wildly. The St. Leno in front of him, it seems that it is not an illusion. At this moment, St. Leno, who had been silent all this time, finally made a move. He raised the Holy Grail in his hand, and a substance shining with golden light slowly rose from the cup, like a tiny twinkling sun. Is it the blood of St. Les? But it doesn't look like it. Lumenfei raised his eyes and stared at the golden substance that looked a bit like a piece of gemstone. He felt only warmth and peace from it. The golden fragment slowly floated towards him and merged into his body. Lumenfei was shocked. This was also a change he could not imagine. He naturally could not think that St. Leno would bring in evil and harmful substances. Lord St. Leno, what you gave me, is it the holy blood of Lord St. Les? He asked tentatively, and at the same time his heart was full of expectations. For the descendants of angels, being able to accept the holy blood of the original body is one of the highest honors. However, St. Leno remained silent. He put down the blood-red holy grail, and a hazy golden halo enveloped him. Finally, he disappeared on the spot. Chapter 121. The spoils of war. Saint Lena disappeared, and with him also disappeared the holy light of the Emperor. The dreaded sunset on the horizon reappeared, but it was not stable, and ripples appeared like rippling water. The dim sunlight swayed over the night food field, whose scorching breath had not yet dissipated. The Tokyo city in the mirror world had long been razed to the ground in the war between humans and dragons. At this time, it returned to its previous dead silence. The only living thing that could still move was Mingfei. But Mingfei was still wondering what kind of holy object of fragment that floated into his body from the blood-red holy grail of St. Lena was. St. Lena's holy blood? It doesn't look like it. Gene seeds given by the Emperor? This is possible. However, gene seeds are only the initial starting point of ostatives. The enhanced organs that need to be implanted in the 19th transformation operation. Obviously, the 3K era that still tried to use pig hearts instead of human hearts could not create the superhuman organs that were supervised and researched by the great Emperor himself in the 30K era out of thin air. After pondering for a while, there was no result. His body did not seem to have any changes. Mingfei had to put this matter aside. With energy gushing out from his wings, he flew to the place where the White King died. Although the alien was surrounded and killed by St. Lena and two level titans, there was basically no possibility of survival. But Mingfei still felt that it was necessary to confirm it in person. After all, in the courses taught at Castle Academy, the most tenacious thing about these aliens was their vitality. There was a huge gully in the place where the White King died, in the shape of a cross, that was the sword mark of St. Lena that penetrated the ground. The precious and highly toxic dragon blood had long been dried by the scorching residual heat generated by the Titan's main weapon, the volcanic cannon and the explosive incineration cannon, leaving only a charred mark. The only body left of Yamato no Oroku was the two giant tails carrying the clouds of the sky. The silver-white sharp bones were worthy at the sharp blade that tore the world apart in the myth. Mingfei's skin felt the deadly sharpness again. Mingfei raised his eyebrows. These two bones themselves were excellent weapons. It should be no problem to pick them up and tinker with them for Shuzaham to use. Although the Japanese sword he used was an alchemical weapon, it was too thin. Thinking in his heart, Mingfei swung the Jinyu grey sword burning with golden flames to cut off the two sharp bones, and used his charred and torn clothes as a belt to pack and kick it up. Then, his eyes fell on the silver-white object in the center of the cross sword mark. It was a humanoid skeleton that seemed to be cast in silver. Even if it was an alien skeleton, Mingfei had to admit that it was gorgeous, like a work of art. Although it looked very similar to human bones, there was a huge difference when you looked closely. There were nearly 1,000 slender bones in the body, some of which were fused together, and some formed organs that had never been seen in any textbook. Mingfei had an idea in his mind to capture a dragon alive for dissection and study its unique organs to replace the enhanced organs needed for Astates surgery. However, this blasphemous idea was immediately dispelled by him. He did not dare to be smart. The last one who tried to analyze and improve the Emperor's creation was the Mechanicus, and then there was the Cursed Army. The Lamenters themselves were a painful lesson, and that was why they were ostracized. Two bundles of thin silver-white bones spread out like a fan, forming a pair of cold bone wings. The owner of the skeleton stretched out his arms and grabbed the broad bone wings behind him, just like the god who was crucified on the cross in the Christian story. The dragon bone cross, every pure-blooded dragon will condense such a thing after death to represent the true fall. Although it was surprising that the aliens still had this substance under the brutal fire of the god's machinery, what surprised Mingfei even more was the alien skull. In that cold universe, the skull is a very common totem, representing the purity of human blood. The skulls of mutants, aliens, and subhumans will have certain variations and differences, but the skull of the alien dragon bone looks no different from that of a human. It's a bit strange, Mingfei frowned. He didn't want to take this alien dragon bone away. He was not like those traitors who fell into the Chaos God and liked to stick a bunch of skulls behind their backs as trophies. However, from the perspective of the hybrids, this White King's dragon bone is an inestimable treasure. If it is left here, some hybrids who want to become new dragons will definitely try every means to get it. As for its use, who knows, anyway, it will not be kept as a collection. Or chop it into powder and put it in a jar and take it back to the war group for safekeeping. Just as Mingfei was thinking, the ground under his feet suddenly shook violently. With the cross crack left by St. Lena was the center, the earth was cracking and shattering rapidly. The sunset on the horizon in the distance was broken like glass, and cracks visible to the naked eye appeared. After enduring the ravages of the horrific war, this Nibelungen finally couldn't hold on and began to collapse. Let's find a way to leave here first. Mingfei wanted to hold the White King's dragon bone in one hand and fly up to the sky first, but its shape obviously couldn't be as easy as holding a briefcase folder. As a last resort, he could only take off the tattered black combat pants under his body and barely tied the White King's dragon bone cross behind his back. Now Mingfei was bare, with only a pair of underwear to protect his bottom. But now is not the time to focus on this. Then, he grabbed the Jinyu greatsword in one hand and the belt with 2 pieces of Tiankusun's tailbones in the other hand. He adjusted the angle of the light wings to spew out gold and spiritual power and flew vertically into the sky. The earth was collapsing and collapsing, as if the underground of this mirror city was hollow. Not only the earth, but also the seawater, the dense dark cloud in the sky, and the broken sunset. It seemed that there was an invisible suction force that recycled and crushed all the materials that made up the night food source. The curtain of Niblung retreated, and a ray of bright and long-lost sunlight fell into Mingfei's eyes. In the blink of an eye, the dilapidated night food field disappeared, replaced by the equally dilapidated Tokyo City. But at least the blue sky, white clouds and sunshine made Mingfei feel very comfortable. Then came a feeling of weakness, and Mingfei could feel the strength of his body rapidly draining away. Not good. Mingfei suddenly woke up. Although he didn't understand why, it seemed that in the real world, the holy light bestowed by the Emperor didn't work. Before the wings behind him could still spew energy and recoil to fly, Mingfei hurriedly looked around to confirm his position. Damn it. Where is this? Where is the black building called Genji Heavy Industries? Mingfei hurriedly began to lower his altitude, while groping for a suitable landing place to avoid hurting innocent pedestrians. He now only hoped that he could land safely. However, the speed at which the psychic power was lost was faster than he thought. When there was still more than 70 meters above the ground, the light wings behind him could no longer produce enough energy to generate reverse thrust, and Mingfei began to fall freely under the influence of the gravity of his hometown. Fortunately, Mingfei had been consciously approaching a nearby building that looked quite luxurious. At the critical moment, he stacked the Jinyu sword in his hand into the wall of that building, tearing a long crack all the way down. Although the sharpness of the Jinyu sword could not produce much buffering force, it could at least ensure that Mingfei would not become the first emperor sent to fall to death. Bang! With a muffled sound, Mingfei landed on the soft green belt in a superhero-style landing posture. Although the process was a bit thrilling, he was finally safe and sound. The Emperor is above, Saint Jerez is above. Mingfei finally breathed a sigh of relief, prayed for the Emperor's protection in his heart, and looked around. Then he saw a large group of people not far away staring at him, a somewhat strong angel who fell from the sky, with a very horrified look. Mingfei recognized the girl who was surrounded by the crowd like a star. She was the beautiful Kendo girl, Setsuko, who was once forced into his car to serve as an interpreter and looked like Hiroju Ryoko. Chapter 122 Belonging Pervert. Although the remaining light wings behind Mingfei and the perfect muscles that had been trained by hell for more than half a year looked quite beautiful, it could not change the fact that he fell from a high altitude into the hospital rest department almost naked. Immediately, a female voice screamed. Mingfei was stunned at first, and then realized that his image was indeed a bit indecent from the perspective of modern civilization. Just as he was thinking about taking off the pants tied with the White King Dragon Bone Cross and putting them on again, the hospital security guards had already arrived. Fortunately, Shijinzi got away from the crowd in time, sent away the security guards and took out clothes, and even planned to take the initiative to cover Mingfei's lower body with things in both hands, but Mingfei refused. Although he also let the servitor do it when he put on the power armor, it was obviously not a solemn occasion now. The Inuyama family's new ballet talent and Kendo beauty Shibukishi Tsuko blushed slightly, her eyes constantly wandering from Mingfei's resolute and calm face, the strong muscle lines on his body, the sharp sword-like bones in his hands, and the cross-shaped dragon bones on his back that were constantly changing between a terrifying ghost and a perfect work of art. However, what attracted her attention the most were Mingfei's pair of sacred wings that seemed to grow out of his body. Although they were gradually becoming illusory and dim, they were definitely real. She couldn't help but reach out to touch them, but then she realized her behavior and quickly retracted her hand. It's great to meet you again, Lu Jun. Thank you for saving me from the hands of the fierce ghost Ryoma. I will remember this great favor in my heart. She lowered her head and said softly. Great favor? Mingfei was startled. After a little thought, he remembered what Shizuka was referring to. That was my negligence. I didn't expect that heretic would actually attack you. Where is this place? Shinjuku District, the hospital of the Foundation under the Snake 8 families. The injured members of the main family will come here for treatment. Shizuko answered. Can you take me back to Genji Heavy Industries? I have to meet up with my brothers in the regiment. Mingfei put on his pants. Although he was still naked, he was at least much more elegant. However, the dragon bone cross he was carrying was too conspicuous and had attracted the attention of many onlookers. Okay, I'll go arrange a car for you now. You look like you just finished fighting. Do you need a physical examination? Shizuko nodded, and her refreshing face showed a concerned look. No, I'm fine. Mingfei shook his head. Now he just needed to adjust the psychological gap. Not long ago, he accepted the holy light of the Emperor, transformed into the Emperor Saint and fought side by side with Saint Lendor. The God's Machine and the Angel of Death roamed the earth and destroyed the alien that was awakened and wanted to flatten and re-rule the world. However, he almost fell to his death just now. The holy light of the Emperor was disappearing and returning to the body with impure human blood. The last time such a gap occurred was not long after he returned to his hometown. In that universe, he could pull out the head of the alien's head with the spine, but at home he couldn't even open the lid of a can. But now the regiment already has alchemy sergeants and meat grinder psychics for warrior consciousness training. The foundation of development has been laid. Next, it depends on how long the regiment can rest in castle. It also needs to accept new recruits, and the equipment department also needs to trick some people to come. Mingfei quickly calmed down the psychological gap and set the development path of the regiment in his mind. The current conflict is between the hybrids and the dragons. The hybrids don't want these former overlords on Earth to come back. Once the dragons are completely wiped out in the future, some hybrids will reveal their wolfish ambitions to divide and rule the world. Mingfei has already made plans to purify this group of new aliens. Shijinzi called her special nanny car. The interior of the car was a beautiful girlish pink. The portable wardrobe was full of various dance skirts and evening gowns. 6 small swords were neatly arranged next to the wardrobe. She also changed from a hospital gown to a black combat uniform, outlining her graceful and delicate curves, with her ponytail tied high, ready for battle. However, Mingfei ignored the beauty of the girl and closed his eyes to think about how to deal with the White King's dragon bone cross. Destruction should be the best choice, but as a champion warrior who is used to being thrifty in the weakness, Mingfei still thinks about how to maximize the benefits. He also secretly used the green light weapons of the captured Necrons. Although it was a big blast from us, it was really powerful. I received news that the headquarters of the main family was attacked 2 hours ago. Mr. Lu should be at the headquarters of the main family at this time. Why did he suddenly fall from the sky? Shijinzi asked softly, staring at Mingfei's face with her beautiful eyes. This is a big troublesome to explain. Anyway, I didn't expect to be here. Mingfei didn't want to explain too much. I understand. Shijinzi nodded obediently and didn't continue. About 20 minutes later, Shijinzi herself took the certificate of the Ngoyama family, and her nanny car was able to drive into the street blocked by the main family to Genji Heavy Industries. Please wait a moment, Mr. Lu, I need to inform the head of the family. Shijinzi said softly. Don't bother. Mingfei got up from the sofa. I acted without the order of the head of the family. If I don't report it, I will be punished by the head of the family. Shijinzi said in a low voice, with a trace of fear on her pretty face. It's not their turn to speak now. Mingfei opened the car door and got out of the nanny car. A group of people in black windbreakers with indifferent expressions came into view. It was still a distance away from the Genji Heavy Industry building. When Mingfei appeared with a sword in his hand and a ferocious dragon bone on his back, almost everyone immediately took out the cold pistols on their waists and pointed them at him. Mingfei frowned and clenched the Jinlu in his hand, which had restored its slender blade. Bagger. Put down your guns. Don't be rude to Lu Jun. Someone appeared in time to stop the explosive situation. He shouted loudly, then trotted to Mingfei and smiled. Lu Jun, I'm so glad that you're okay. Now all the family heads are worried about you. Are you, Crow? Mingfei recognized the follower who followed Yuan Zishan. Oh. I didn't expect that you still remember me, Mr. Lu. I'm Ryuji Zaki, a subordinate of young Master General Chishin. Crow nodded and bowed, but his eyes secretly glanced at the silver-white dragon bone behind him and could not hide it from Mingfei. Where are my brothers? Mingfei asked coldly. Please rest assured. Your brothers are now under the protection of the 8 snake families. Don't play tricks on me, I know what you are planning. Now take me to confirm the situation of my fighting brothers. Before that, let the heads of the families who can make decisions for you prepare. Mingfei glanced at Crow coldly. The so-called protection is house arrest. It is unknown whether this group of people will attack Shuzhang and others because they want the information of Yi Zisayuan. Understand? Understand? I will arrange the staff now. Crow shuddered and nodded repeatedly, and ran to the side to inform the heads of the families. The black-clothed people who were guarding consciously made way for Mingfei. Shi Jinzi thought again and again, and finally chose to follow quickly. Captain. I'm so glad you were safe. I thought I'd never see you again. Back in the VIP suite on the 38th floor, Finger, who was the first to recover from his shock, ran over and gave Mingfei a big hug. But it was just symbolic, because the dragon bone cross behind Mingfei was a big prickly. Bless you, you're fine. Shuzhang was not the kind of person who easily showed his superficial emotions, but when he came over to give Mingfei the Sky Eagle salute, his face still showed a happy smile from the heart. Ming, no, Captain. You actually escaped from that monster. That thing is bigger than a bull. Did you summon Yamato to escape? Old Tang's eyes widened, and he came up as if he had seen a ghost. As long as you're okay. Mingfei glanced around the room and saw Yuan Xin huddled in the corner of the room. He still looked like he had suffered a huge mental blow, staring blankly at the ground. Captain, this guy is a trouble. The Japanese branch wanted to take him away by force, saying he was a ghost of the 8 Snake clan and they had to deal with him. The deputy captain also had a conflict with them. That guy named Yuan Zisheng is not simple. If the other party didn't want to get entangled, I feel. Finger leaned close to Mingfei's ear and whispered. He is now the property of the regiment. The sidekick who will be responsible for the training of soldiers in the future must stay in the regiment to atone for his sins even if he is guilty. It is not their turn to decide. Mingfei said coldly. By the way, Captain, what is that on your back? Finger's eyes were fixed on the silver-white dragon bone cross on Mingfei's back. The dragon bone cross, the alien called the White King. Don't tell me you don't know what it is because you haven't learned it before. Mingfei said lightly. Finkel sucked in a breath of cold air, his eyes whitened like copper bells, and his voice trembled when he spoke again. Is it really, the dragon bone cross of the White Emperor? That kind of existence has really fallen completely? I heard from Director Miyamoto Shikshin that the White King is sleeping in the Nibelungen, but I don't believe it, damn it. If other hybrids knew that this is the dragon bone cross of the White King, they would definitely go crazy and start a war to snatch it. Finkel's palm trembled as he stroked the cold silver-white dragon bone. It was so hideous, representing the existence that once controlled the world and looked down on the world. But it was so beautiful, representing the unimaginable huge treasure left behind after the fall of the former emperor. That alien was killed by the will of the Holy Blood Angels and the incarnation of the own Messiah, so it belongs to the Weeping Angels. Mingfei said. Chapter 123 Threatening the 8 Snake Clan. Captain, you'd better not think about collecting this thing, except for the joint efforts of Principal Ange and the Vice Principal. No half-blood force can swallow this treasure alone. Even if these 2 old perverts suppress it, the school board, which is responsible for paying their sky-high bills every year, will definitely try every means to strike first, otherwise it will fail the principle that the one who is close to the water will get the moon first. Finger's hand seemed to be glued to the dragon bone cross, and his eyes revealed an emotion similar to hunger, as if he was stroking the skin of his lover. So this is why I want the Weeping Angels to be independent, Mingfei said coldly. You are too easily deceived. You haven't even been completely purified of the Dragon Clan, but you were thinking about dividing their heritage in the entire world. You only saw the dragon bones of the White King, but you didn't think about who killed it. Hearing this, Finger suddenly woke up, as if he was splashed with a basin of cold water, shivered all over, and put his palm down from the White King's dragon bone cross. This is the White King, an existence of almost the same level as the Black King. His awakening should have set off a raging rage that swept the entire world, but he was killed in the aftermath of a disaster that failed to destroy even Tokyo, and turned into a dragon bone cross. And the boy in front of him with a cold expression. After they withdrew from Nibelungen, no one knew what kind of battle had taken place inside, and how the White King was killed. The greed attracted by the White King's dragon bone was shattered. Fingal would think of the white mat dragon that appeared in the thunder of Nibelungen a few hours ago, but the heartbeat of the revived dragon was like someone hitting the heart with a hammer. There is no possibility for a creature of that level to commit suicide and give away its dragon bone, right? In short, the captain of the regiment left Nibelungen alive, and he also brought the White King's dragon bone cross. There is only one possibility. The good news is that not many people know that this dragon bone cross belongs to the White King. However, given your unstable style of doing things and your unclear relationship with the two principals of the Academy, I hope you will regard this dragon bone as belonging to a lower species, my dear brother Finger. Mingfei's tone and eyes were full of cold warnings. After all, this brother had been in the group for the shortest time and did not show any pious behavior towards the Emperor. Should we also keep it a secret from the principal and the vice principal? Finger shuddered again and did not dare to laugh anymore. Let's keep it a secret for now. Wait until the Weeping Angels have the ability to be independent. Mingfei said. What are you going to do about the Japanese branch? They are all descendants of the White King. Who would have thought that the Japanese mixed bloods who seem to have no history are actually the ones with a long history? Their bloodline was personally bestowed by the White King himself. Your action is like killing their god. Whether they love you or hate you, they will definitely not let you leave with God's treasure like this. Finger said. It's not their turn to decide now. Mingfei said coldly. On the 30th floor of Genji Heavy Industries, there is a reception area called Awakening Temple. Led by Ibuki Sakura, Mingfei crossed the Vermilion Torii Gate. On the walls on both sides were carved various ghosts and gods in Shintoism. From the Solomon Matarasu and Tsukairama to the mighty Susanoo, there were also ferocious demons, some with lion-like faces and fangs, and some sitting cross-legged on a pile of skulls. The wind and clouds surrounded these gods and demons, as if 100 ghosts were parading at night. Mingfei ignored the so-called etiquette and walked straight to the stone table with black and white colors forming a circular taikai pattern. The eyes of the 6 people at the table immediately turned to him. Except for the young director of the Executive Bureau, Yuan Zishan, the other 5 people focused more on the silver-white dragon bone cross carried by Mingfei. There should be 8 people in the Snake 8 families, why are there only 6? Mingfei also glanced at the 5 people, the Jinglu in his hand acting as a cane, the tip of the sword sank into the hard concrete. In addition to Miyamoto Shia, Inlo and Yuan Zishan, who had met before, the other middle-aged suited man, young woman, and gloomy old man should be the heads of the Ryoma family, Sakurai family, and Yuma family respectively. Counting the head of the Uzechi family who was almost kidnapped, now Mingfei only has the head of the Tachibana family that he has not met yet. The head of the family is not feeling well today, so we have the full agent. Yuan Zishan took a deep breath and tried to put away his absent-minded look. Can you tell us who the dragon bone cross behind you belongs to? You don't know. Mingfei raised his eyebrows. I know, but the heads of the families still want your personal recognition. As the head of the Miyamoto family who witnessed Mingfei's fight with the White King, his attitude was obviously more enthusiastic. It's the alien called the White King. Judging from the dragon bloodline, you should be his descendants. Mingfei said. You actually killed a god. This is incredible. Miyamoto Shia stood up from the table excitedly, his eyes blazing, and with a hint of fear. Although the video shot in the night food field was a little blurry, the bright golden meteor fighting with the ferocious Yamato no Orokai ancestor was undoubtedly the young man in front of him. You're right. The White King is indeed our ancestor. But I'd better get straight to the point, Mr. Lu. Yuan Zishan sighed softly, and seemed not good at beating around the bush. He said directly, the dragon bone cross left behind by the god after his death, are you willing to sell it back to the 8 snake families? The 8 snake families are willing to pay 100 billion yen to buy the White King's dragon bone. I didn't come here to discuss business with you. Mingfei shook his head, there is no plan to sell this alien bone to any mixed blood force. It only belongs to the Weeping Angels. Weeping Angels? The heads of the families all had a puzzled look on their faces. The battle group I established. Mingfei said. Do you represent the secret party? The head of the Fen family asked in a deep voice. It doesn't represent any mixed blood force, but only represents itself. It sounds a bit ridiculous and childish for a child to want to establish an unknown battle group in a mixed blood society. But no one, including Yuan Zishan, dared to underestimate Mingfei. This regiment has just killed the White King. I'm sorry, Mr. Lu. No matter what, please leave the ancestors' dragon bones in Japan. This represents the eternal friendship with the 8 snake families. The beautiful and scheming head of the Sakurai family said softly. She is like a duck in water in the business world and tried to impress Mingfei. I'm not very interested in your friendship. What if I say no? Mingfei responded with cold eyes, do you want to rob it? He gently pulled out the Jinyu, and his eyes bloomed with shining golden meaning again, scanning the 6 heads of the 8 snake families present. Everyone present felt a chill, even the head of the Miyamoto family, who was the least good at fighting, held the blade beside him tightly. Chapter 124. Beating Yuan Zishan. Dad, you really left me a mess. Yuan Zishan sighed softly in his heart, silently grabbing the spider Korean boy Karu beside him. Even he himself felt it was very ridiculous. Just by waking up, half of the gods in Tokyo are destroyed. They, who were even ready to die with honor, actually had the nerve to ask the person who killed the god for the Dragon Bone Cross. That kind of thing was enough to make the hybrids start the Third World War, but they wanted to buy it for 100 billion yen. But it was ridiculous, and now that Tachibana-san suddenly fell ill, he temporarily replaced the position of the head of the family. Since he sat in this position, he had to think about the entire Snake 8 families. If Mingfei really wanted to kill everyone here, even if he was defeated, he would have to bite the bullet. Lu Jun, please calm down, we absolutely did not mean to offend you. Sakurai Nanami's charming face flushed, and she spoke with difficulty under the oppression of cold murderous intent. You should feel lucky. If it were me in the past, you would have gone to see your ancestor. Mingfei tilted his head, and the edge of the Jinyu sword was slightly lowered, and the invisible killing intent dissipated. He did not use the deterrent method of the alien bloodliner, because he had just received the blessing of the Emperor's holy light not long ago, and it would be a bit blasphemous to do so. This dragon bone belongs only to the weeping angels. I'm not here to discuss business with you. Mingfei glanced at the heads of these families coldly. You have only one choice, that is to surrender. Surrender. The faces of the heads of the families darkened. Being forced to surrender by a 16-year-old underage boy with a sword pointed at him was a great shame for the Sheki 8 families. In Oyama he looked at the boy with shining golden light in his eyes, as if he saw Hilbert Jinanj, who had defeated the Sheki 8 families alone with absolute violence 61 years ago. However, the former was killed along with the god sleeping in the night food plain. What was defeated was not only the 8 snake families, but also the history of the entire Japanese hybrids. The 8 snake families are now under the control of the Castle Academy under their secret party. Yumiko Taro said in a deep voice. The old man who was called the King of Ninjas put away all his sharpness in front of Mingfei. You don't need to break up with Castle immediately, because the Weeping Angels are also under the name of Castle Academy. Mingfei said, you only need to provide the Weeping Angels with the necessary financial and material support in secret. Although these people carry the unclean blood of the alien, it would be a pity to purify them all. They still have considerable power. The development of the war group needs the support of power. Otherwise, like the ship-based war group like the Weepers, the wealth given by the mechanical church has been used from the establishment of the army since the curse until now, and they are poor and miserable. However, a war group like the Salamanders, which has a long history and can make its own equipment, will never use a chainsword for more than 10 years. Mingfei also heard from the Warband leader that a certain mysterious Warband even had an entire Forge World planet to provide them with weapons and equipment, which shocked him as he had just become an Ostates wearing a set of power armor made up of various models. So it is better to let them work for the Weeping Angels first, and then deal with them according to the situation later. Then can you protect our Sheki 8 families? Said the head of the Longma family. This man who looked like he was experiencing a midlife crisis had an unexpectedly calm face at this time. He is the potential military force of the Sheki 8 families. He was temporarily recruited by the Japanese self-defensive forces through a special process and became a first-class air captain in the reserve of the self-defensive forces. This rank is equivalent to a colonel in other countries. When necessary, the head of the Longma family can even mobilize the air force of the self-defensive forces. Shelter. Mingfei raised his eyebrows. As long as you are useful enough, the Weeping Angels will not abandon their tools. The heads of the 5 families under the Sheki 8 families were silent until Yuan Zishan said softly, Mr. Lu, please give us some time to discuss it. This matter must be reported to the head of the Ju family. Okay, but you don't have the conditions to bargain with me. Mingfei nodded. Now he has plenty of time and is not afraid that these people will have any crooked thoughts. Just when he wanted to turn around and leave, Yuan Zishan stood up with 2 swords in his hands and called him. Sorry, Mr. Lu, there is another thing I want to discuss with you. About your brother. Mingfei stopped and stared at this man who was somewhat similar to Yuan Zinu, but the other party did not have any feminine meaning. There was only masculinity and indomitable spirit between his eyebrows. Yes, this matter only represents me personally, and has nothing to do with the Sheki 8 clan. Yuan Zishan's face was solemn. Zindu is a rare evil ghost in the world. He killed many people when he was young. I thought I had killed him, but I don't know why he came back to life. I would like to ask you to hand him over to the Shekiate clan for disposal. No. Mingfei refused. His words should be very useful to the battle group, and he must stay in the battle group to atone for the crimes he committed. Atonement. Yuan Zishan repeated the word in a low voice, and then silently pulled out the two ancient swords, Tongziki and Zhuk. His momentum changed in an instant, and the bones in his body crackled, as if some strange changes had occurred, and there was a fiery golden lava flowing in his eyes. For a moment, the eyes of the other family heads rose with a light called hope. They knew Yuan Zishan's identity and power, but the light disappeared immediately. But even the White King was pulled off the throne by the boy. How long can Yuan Zishan hold on in Mingfei's hands? Without saying much, Mingfei pulled out the Jinyu from the floor, and a pair of hazy wings of light appeared behind him. For this group of half-bloods who would not obey unless they were beaten, only action could replace verbal threats to teach them a lesson that they dared not disobey orders. Please don't be impulsive, Director Yuan. Miyamoto Shikshin hurriedly persuaded him. He had witnessed Mingfei's power to slay a dragon with his own eyes, and the pair of wings of light seemed to represent the will of a supreme being. He then remembered Mingfei's file, and the so-called Angel of Death was not the name of a middle school disease. Yuan Zishan ignored the head of the Miyamoto family. His eyes stared at Mingfei, and the spider cutter and the boy cutter Yasunaga flashed coldly. Fear is not the emotion that Amaterasu should have. And it is not impossible to win. Maybe it was not Mingfei who killed the White King. After all, after the head of the Miyamoto family left, no one knew what happened in the night food field. He thought to himself, and his figure disappeared in an instant. Along with the extreme speed, there is also the extremely dangerous word spirit. Kingship. The invisible force of thousands of pounds descended from the sky and locked Mingfei. Yuan Zishan and his two handed-down demon-slaying swords turned into a deadly meat grinder. Dragon Bone State. Yuan Zishan, the super hybrid of the 8 snake families. Not many people know that the blood of Japanese hybrids originates from the White King, and only the heads of the 8 snake families know the existence of the Emperor. According to the knowledge mastered by European and American hybrids, the maximum proportion of dragon blood in the body of hybrids cannot exceed 50%. If it exceeds that threshold, the personality will be devoured by the tyrannical thinking of the dragon, and there is a danger of degenerating into a dead pool. But Japanese hybrids can break this limit. Their blood comes from the White King, who controls the spiritual power, and the inherited spiritual talent ensures that their mind is not eroded and devoured. Yuan Zishan belongs to one of the super hybrids. It can even be said that he is a human-shaped dragon, but there is a heart full of sentimentality. Time passed in a flash. When the family heads present reacted again, they saw that Mingfei and Yuan Zishan had already met each other. The knights and swords collided with each other and were in a stalemate. The tips of their noses almost touched each other. The two pairs of eyes gushing with golden light shone with dazzling sparks. Is your word spirit also this way to increase gravity? Mingfei's eyes lit up and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. The gravity shackles that oppressed him were as light as nothing compared to the power released by the White King alien. After leaving the night food source, the holy light bestowed by the Emperor did not dissipate directly, but merged into Mingfei's body, further cleansing and strengthening his body. Yuan Zishan did not dare to be careless. After the confrontation, the ridiculous idea in his mind had disappeared. He had to go all out. But he had no chance to attack next. Mingfei twisted the hilt of the sword, and with one hand, he swung the slender blade of Jinyu, drawing a graceful sword arc in the air. Yuan Zishan had no choice but to raise the spider sword to block the deadly sharp sword, but the Tongzi sword held tightly in the other hand was snatched away by the opponent at a swift speed. The handed-down demon-slaying sword was thrown away by Mingfei, and he had no intention of using it. The gorgeous blue light began to condense and form on the sword body. Jinyu's alchemy field had been opened, and the attack came like a storm. Yuan Zishan parried 37 times in a somewhat embarrassed manner. The top of his head, left ribs, right chest, the other people present could not see the movements of their weapons at all. They could only see the flash of the sword light that was like the brilliance of stars and moons, and the harsh sound and flickering fireworks when the golden swords collided. Even the head of the Inuyama family, who was watching the battle, was trying to calm his emotions at this moment, but the cold sweat that kept flowing from his forehead exposed the turbulent waves in his heart. His word spirit is the instant, which represents the speed of the world. He has always been proud of being the world's strongest instant user. but Lumenfei and Yuan Zishan's speed seems to have reached the 6th level 64 times speed, and they don't need the blessing of the word spirit. They fight with their own physical fitness and strength. Yuan Zishan has never faced such an opponent, but for someone who is suspected of killing the White King, such strength can only be considered normal. Lumenfei's speed is faster than him. Yuan Zishan can't turn the tide by counterattack or strong attack. Eye-catching blood flowers are still spurting out of his solid dragon body. Chapter 125. Eric. I went to play with the angel. It was as if a rainstorm of dense sword lights was falling in the awakening temple, and sharp winds blew across the faces of the 5 family heads. Even the powerful Yuma family heads and Warhammer family heads did not dare to approach rashly. Yuan Zishan made it clear that this battle was only for himself and did not want to involve the 8 snake families. As Yuan Zishan's physical strength was squeezed to the limit, the oppression of the royal domain was also constantly easing, and his decline began to show. However, Lumenfei did not seem to want to kill him. The opponent was the sword wrapped in gorgeous emerald energy. Although it was sharp, every stab of the sword would bring out eye-catching scarlet blood, but it obviously avoided the vital parts of his body. Yuan Zishan still did not give up, trying to find the right opportunity to resist and defeat Lumenfei with a sword. As the super-hybrid emperor of the Snake 8 clan, the Snake 8 clan found Kendo masters from all over Japan to train him, including Kaguma Shinkei Rai, Yejiush Thinkit Rai, Kasumi Shinto Rai, and Koshijin Rai. He was proficient in various swordsmanship schools, but Lumenfei did not give him the opportunity to show it. Instead, he used his body as a demonstration to show his ruthless swordsmanship that was deadly but would not let him die. The champions of the Blood Angels are often first-class swordsmanship masters. Except for the rare time spent training in the battleship training room, Lumenfei spent most of his time honing his deadly swordsmanship skills in killing. Bang! The finale was a sharp whirlwind kick, which was imprinted on Yuan Zishan's solid chest, kicking him to the terrace not far away, splashing water. He never got up again. Director Minamoto. Acting head of the family. Nanami Sakurai and Shio Miyamoto hurried over to check on Minamoto Kisei, while the other 3 family heads held their sabers nervously, alerting the boy to whether he would catch up and kill him. Fortunately, Lumenfei did not seem to have such an intention. He just glanced at the 3 family heads, Yuma Kotaro, Inoyamahi and Ryoma Genikirm, calmly. Anything else to say? If not, I will go back and wait for your news. If you're really useful to the Weeping Angel, then I may consider letting you observe and study this alien bone. The 3 family heads were silent for a while. Minamoto Kisei's defeat had already proved his powerful strength. Even if the 3 of them joined forces, they could not defeat the boy with the bones of the gods in front of them. Lumenfei raised his eyebrows, ignored them, picked up his sword and turned to leave. It was not until he walked out of the awakening temple that Lumenfei breathed a sigh of relief. The hazy light wings behind him disappeared, and he stretched his aching body. Yuan Zishan's physical strength in that strange state was beyond his imagination. If it weren't for the Emperor's holy light that was restrained and strengthened his body for the 2nd time, he might not have been able to suppress Yuan Zishan under the pressure of the kingship. Emperor, I will follow your will and use your holy light to clean up all the heretics and aliens that harm humanity on this land. He prayed devoutly and softly. Of course, suppression is not the same as killing. If he really wants to kill Yuan Zishan, Lumenfei has other means. The manufacture of the alchemical version of the power armor must be put on the agenda as soon as possible. I don't know how the equipment department has studied the model armor. I will ask the equipment department about the progress later. Lumenfei cannot guarantee that he can fight in the dungeon every time. He also needs to improve his combat power in the real world. How was the chat? Are those people from the Japanese branch willing to let us leave? Lumenfei returned to the VIP suite prepared for them by the Snake 8 family on the 38th floor and put down the dragon bone cross on his back. It was really uncomfortable to carry this thing all the time. Finkel came up to help very attentively, and asked with concern. We'll know soon. Lumenfei didn't say it directly. Where are those alien alchemical creations? Here. Shuzaham brought a special aluminum alloy box, which was neatly inlaid with 6 palm-sized black pyramids. Brother Old Tang has turned off the alchemical matrix on it, and it won't activate automatically even if it is put together now. Finkel said. I can't explain why, I feel like I was born to know these things. Old Tang's words were obviously a little lacking in confidence. The more you know, the better. You still have a lot of tasks to complete after returning to the battle group. Lumenfei patted Old Tang's shoulder to encourage him. Why do I feel like I've entered a black-hearted factory? Old Tang said he was very panicked. When I go to your castle college, you won't ask me to go mining, right? That's for sure. Our castle college is a good place, there are no mines. Finkel put his arm around Old Tang's shoulders and comforted him. Mingfei picked up the bronze chain dragon binding rope that had bound Uzajieri, and then swung it twice, using it to bind the White King's dragon bone cross. The living spirit in the dragon binding rope showed fear, and the bronze chain body lit up a striking red light, actually resisting the binding of that dragon bone cross. It's not alive, what are you afraid of? Mingfei scolded dissatisfiedly. The status of this dragon bone cross is too high, even high-level alchemical products are not qualified or restricted. Finger ran over and explained in a low voice. What status does it have if it's dead? If I didn't think it might be useful in the future, I would have chopped it into powder. Mingfei said coldly, and directly wrapped the chain around the White King's dragon bone cross to save him from carrying it every day. At this moment, someone knocked on the door of the room. Have you discussed it so quickly? Mingfei raised his eyebrows, feeling a little surprised. He thought that these mixed bloods would need another day or two to discuss. Finkel ran over to open the door. He was stunned for a moment when he saw the person come in, and then a look of fear appeared on his face. Hello, beautiful lady. When Yuan Zishan woke up from his coma, the first thing he saw was Sakura Yabuki sitting at the head of the bed. Sakura, how long have I been unconscious? Yuan Zishan sat up suddenly from the bed. The injuries left by Mingfei had healed under the powerful dragon body. The reason he fainted was because of exhaustion. The consumption of maintaining the royal domain was really huge. 46 minutes, young master. Ying stood up and said respectfully. 46 minutes, Yuan Zishan breathed a sigh of relief, and then a somewhat decadent and helpless look appeared on his face. This is the power of the person who killed the gods. Where did the secret party find such a monster? Ying didn't say much, just stood aside quietly. Where are the other family heads? And where is my father? Let him get up and take charge of the situation quickly. I have a headache. Yuan Zishan asked again. The four heads of the Ryoma family, the Sakurai family, the Yuma family, and the Miyamoto family have all gone to ask the head of the family. Sakura said softly. This is good, let them decide, I can still have some peace for a while. General Chishan lay back on the bed silently. But, 10 minutes ago, we received a call from the medical staff on the 45th floor, saying that Miss Era ran away from home again. Sakura said. General Chishan suddenly sat up from the bed in shock. Where did she go? Her body is not well yet, she can't run around at this time. The doctors and nurses who were responsible for treatment and secret surveillance on the floor were all killed in the attack. The 8 snake families were replaced by a group of nurses who were not familiar with the situation. When the nurses found that the head of the Uzachi family had disappeared, they only saw a note on the table pressed by the PS3 controller, which read, I went to play with the angels. Thanks to the 4 leaders of Big Boss Bit. Dark. The first Silver Alliance of this book was born. Thank you for the blessing of the loving Father God. The chapters owed have not been paid, now I have to continue to owe. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.